I am the Count Gore, and you are listening to the Tampa Morgue.
Strikes again, but every time they invade his castle, Nosferatu was never there. His bully's victims are his next meal. Death is in his stare. He lost his soul to the king of darkness from the first lethal bite. Lives his death in fear of the cross, the urge to kill every night. London after midnight, but I'm lost to the dawn. London after midnight, mortal life is gone.
and says his prayers by night. May become a bat when the vampire prowls and the moon is full and
bright. Watch your neck! just walked across my grave. Whoa, no! London after midnight, blood rush to the dawn. London after midnight, your mortal life is gone. London after midnight, blood rush to the dawn. London after midnight, your mortal life is gone.
Are you sure you want to go inside? This place sucks out all your blood.
What's up? This is Tony, and you're listening to the Tampa Morgue, Season 2, Episode 69.
Okay, so let's all open up our Reading is Fun books to page 69.
69.
And as always, I'm joined by my co-host from his studio somewhere in Tampa Bay, Florida, Mr. Ed Webb. What's up, Ed?
Mr. Anderson, what's up, brother? You're back in the fucking tundra.
I mean, we were just hanging out like, what? We're me, you, your wife,
A week
my
ago,
wife.
exactly. We had
Yeah,
dinner a week ago, exactly.
Yeah, we had dinner twice. We went
bon
to Hooters on the
voyage.
way out. Nice weather.
Yep.
We went out with Mark Prater and his wife a couple nights before that over
Yep.
in St. Petersburg. Nice weather. I'm back today.
What was it?
-7.
Tits and ass at Hooters.
Hooters, yeah, right. We're at Hooters with our wives, which was a good time. But man, yeah, it's freezing here, and as you know, we had like a really rough trip back. We got to Tampa Airport, and we noticed that the flight in Germany. So we had a connecting flight, so we fly out to Germany. I think our flight was like 9 hours to Frankfurt Airport, and then. But we're in Tampa. We already saw that the flight was going to be delayed in Frankfurt. The big problem was we only had a 2-hour layover, and we knew that. Plane even got there later than that. Even we missed our plane to Lithuania by 2 minutes and wound up spending another 8 hours in the airport with our 2 kids. And dude, it sucked. That airport, man. The security guards, the customs check. It's just a rough experience. And you've been there too, right? On tour, you've been through that place a few times.
I have. I flew in there. I think that's where we flew in for Vakken. There, Heathrow, both of those places absolutely suck when you're American. The thing is, your wife and kids don't look American. You know what I mean?
Wow.
They have that European look to them. And
they were frisking the kids, dude.
Yeah,
it was like total
ridiculous.
bullshit.
I'm telling you, man, Angry Ed would have come out. I'd have been in a fucking German jail because 2 minutes. I'll tell you, when we were coming back from Europe, on that run with Origin, when we came back from Europe, we flew into Newark, and that airport is the most fucked up airport in the world. We came in, went into I don't even know. You went through some door, they took you down these stairs like you're just walking through this maze, and all of a sudden you're walking out of the airport. You're getting on one of those little kind of vans kind of thing, big vans, with that you can load your luggage on, that they take you to like hotels and shit. They take us to another entrance, and now we have to go back through security because we left the exit.
Oh, that's a nightmare.
And we're already like fucking, and we've got our luggage because we're having to do connecting flights from international. So you have to take your luggage and re-put it through for customs. And we are running so far behind, and I just remember we got there, and luckily the only saving grace was we just handed off our luggage. We didn't have to go through customs or go through any of the security shit for the luggage, but we had to re-go through security,
which is still a pain in the ass.
And Mark always gets stopped because he walks around like a fucking biker with his goddamn belt buckle and you think he's a fucking cowboy. Yeah, Mark Van Erp, I'm talking about you. Leave the buckle at home, goddammit. Every time he gets stopped. Well, Matt decided to haul ass, Matt Barnes, and by the time we got to the fucking gate, the door was closed. And
That's when you know.
And for whatever reason, they opened it up and let us on.
Oh wow, you got lucky.
They were still they were still in pre-boarding, but he had told them, "Hey, listen, we're stuck in security. They're coming." And luck, we made the flight, but the door was closed. We were fucked, and I'm like, I'm not staying in Jersey, bro. I just spent fucking 6 weeks, 6.5, whatever, 6 weeks in Europe. I want to go home. And it's already night.
That was the thing with us. We were burnt out. We spent a month in Florida. We had some really bad Airbnb experiences. The whole thing. But I mean, everything else was cool. The band stuff was great. The show was great. Getting to see you guys, the family, the holidays was awesome. Me and my wife went to see Wasp. We went to the Raider game, which they lost. The day before we left in Tampa, went to the Devils game over in Tampa. We did a bunch of stuff with the family and stuff. So that was cool. But the trip home was hell. And, we had like 5 suitcases. We paid like 500 and something in luggage. And that's another thing. I was like, is our luggage going to make it? They didn't explain to me that the luggage doesn't go on the plane until they make sure you're on there, so that was like a whole big thing. And it was a rough 2 days, man, because we want to spend an extra 8 hours in there. So what I thought was a 12-hour travel back from Florida to Lithuania wound up being like, almost 24 hours more.
You got 2 young kids, man. When you're adults, if I have to sit in the airport by myself, it's not as bad. But when you have to entertain a 5 and a 3-year-old, that's some fucking jump rope shit right there.
It was rough, dude. We flew on Discover Airlines, which is part of Lufthansa, but it was a shit show, but I'm glad to be back home. As much as, it was great to see everybody, when you're spending time in different places, and it's nice to get back to your own bed and, with my kids and stuff. So we're back to also glad to get back to the Tampa Morgue. We actually did an extra episode, right? We played the show on the 23rd, Swarm Fest, in Tampa. And then we did a show, I think, like 6 days later, which wasn't even planned.
It was Black Friday.
It was Black Friday. That's right.
Yep. Yeah, and it was a show. It was kind of like a recap, like a quick, keep everybody knowing, hey, we're still here. We weren't, because it was unplanned. Obviously, we just, it was a throw and go. You're fucking throwing extension cords all through the house because the place right before you were staying at was such a shit show that as soon as we're getting ready to go on, you're telling me, hey, you lost half the power in the house. Again, Angry Ed, I'd have been in a prison in Pinellas Park. I'm telling you, man, or Largo or St. Pete, wherever the hell you were. There's no way, man. I mean, I've been lucky with the places I stay at, but yeah, I just can't tolerate incompetence like that, especially when you're paying as much as you did for that garbage.
It was not a pleasant experience, but we're back, and we have we do have a guest tonight, a return guest. Guy who, me and Ed, if you ever heard the episode we did, episode 22, which I think was December 1st, I want to say, or 2nd.
3rd.
We did, was it
something like that? Yeah, it was like almost a year ago.
A year ago, we had Count Gore Duvall on, and he's going to come hang out with us for a little bit today. Also, we're going to be talking about a convention he's going to be appearing at in the Tampa Bay Screams, which will be January 19th, I want to say.
That is correct.
Yes, Sunday, January 19th. So we're going to talk all about that with Count. I know he has about an hour or so with us today because he's got some people coming by and to take care of some stuff for him. He actually was filming today his show for his pot. He has an internet show called The Dungeon, which we'll talk about with him, which we talked about on episode 22 prior.
In the coffin.
Yeah, has the coffin in there, and he was filming today, so he'll be in full Count Gore Duvall attire. So we will, which we'd never do. We will put a couple of videos, I believe, on Instagram this week, just little clips. But he is, in the full Count Gore Duvall attire. Anybody who doesn't know Count Gore Duvall, the guy's been around for a very long time. Like I said, me and Ed were kids. He was on our TV sets. He was inducted into the Horror Host Hall of Fame in 2011, alongside, which is, we're going to talk about this with Count too, so he was with 13 different people were inducted that year. Vampira, Zachary, Marvin, Sam Terry, the Cool Ghoul, Dr. Morgue, the Magnificent, MT Graves, which is Charlie Baxter, let me see, Goulardi, Sir Graves Ghastly, the Bowman Body, Svanguli, Jerry G. Bishop, and Dr. Creep. So, and he is the only man standing still out of all that crew.
It's crazy.
13 people inducted, and He's the only guy still around. We're big fans of Count Gore Duvall. His real name is Dick Dizell. He wore many hats in his career, from Bozo to Clown to Captain 20. He did 11 different voices on Kids Break. He was a producer. He was a DJ. He did over 1,000 weddings. I mean, just crazy stuff. We really appreciate Count. We're looking forward to talk to him today. We always like having him on the show. He is a return guest. And like I said, he will be in, for all you Tampa residents, he'll be in that area on Sunday, January 19th at the Tampa Bay Screams Convention, which we'll go over all that. We opened up the show with a band that me and Ed both have always dug. We talk about sometimes on the show, and we've never played them, actually. Hopefully we don't get pinged for a copyright, because they were on Atlantic Records, but it's Wrathchild America. We played London After Midnight from Climbing the Walls. They came out August 22nd, 1989. Ed, we always, great band, man. I always say, like, Wrathchild, they did the 3D album later, a couple years later. Climbing the Walls came out in 89. I remember when I was in high school, they were kicking. And, now, I know Brad does, Brad's a sound guy. He's a very successful sound guy now. He was also in Kicks, actually, too, for a period of time. Brad Divins. The drummer, obviously, is Shannon Larkin, who played Ugly Kid Joe. Wrathchild America, obviously. Godsmack, he's still playing. But that's, Wrathchild America. That's who that was we opened up the show with. And so, Ed, what's been going on, man, with you? Anything good?
No, you left. My fun is over.
The party's over.
Yeah.
No monstrosity news. Nothing going on that front.
Just listening to the, a million different mixes, because nobody's happy with the sound. I think we finally got it, though. I think, because I haven't heard no backlash in the chat of the last. Because when we played our show, Matt flew into town to go up with Lee to Orlando to reamp the guitars, because Matt was not happy with the guitar tone, and this has been a struggle for, God, I don't know how long this thing's been recorded, but yeah, so apparently they got it all squared away and everybody seems happy, so hopefully this fucking thing comes out soon, because I've heard it a million times and I'm ready for everybody else to hear it and shit on me, so it'll be great.
And also anybody who's listening, we still have a few of the Tampa Morgue shirts.
Yes.
You can hit us up. We have not many, though. I think we have we probably have about 10 or 12 shirts left. I have to go through the count again, but we do have some of those. You can see them on the Instagram page. We also have guest-wise, we're working on a few things that we're, hopefully we'll be able to announce pretty soon, and some really cool stuff if it works out. We do have Jesse Jolly coming on December 27th. Ed's known Jesse for years. I've known Jesse for years. Jesse from Malevolent Creation. He's actually fronting it too on this tour they're doing now.
He is.
Passive Possession, Amon, Xi Amon, Blightmas, Promethean Horde, Ex Diabolic, which you and guys were both in that band together. Well, not together, but two different times. Blastmasters. He was in After Death for a period of time too, at one point. But we'll have Jesse on. We'll talk to him about his. He's been around for a while, man. So he's done a lot of stuff. We talked about his musical path. We'll have him on again on Friday, December 27th. We'll keep you posted on that on the Instagram. We'll have some more stuff we're going to be announcing soon. And Ed, so basically, I guess tonight we're going to get to Dick, right? Count to Gore Duvall in a couple of minutes. Let's go over. Is there any shows you have or anything, or any new releases that you want to mention? I have some stuff here that I pulled. Well, first of all, Pegasus Lounge. I know you're heartbroken, but closed down. 23 years they were going. They spent 16 years near the Busch Gardens there. What's that? What road were they on by the USF?
It's 30th Street. 30th Street.
Okay, 30th Street.
30th Street. It turns into Bruce B. Downs after Fowler.
Yeah, so they closed down. I know the owner, Julie Bible, owned it since like 2001. They eventually moved over to North Florida Avenue.
Correct. Where the Brass Mug, the second Brass Mug was. They took that over.
So they are done. You don't see any venue go under. It's 23 years. I know me and
Ed
played
they
there.
witnessed Angry Ed.
We played a show which was 2009, which is crazy. I believe it was that year.
Really? That's how long ago it was, huh?
Yeah, we had played a show with one of Ed's bands, Engineer Christ, and it was definitely a shit show that evening.
Well, I was doing double duty that night.
Yep.
and we were supposed to go on like
It was Destined to Ruin, right? It was Generic Christ and Destined
it
to
was
Ruin.
supposed to be Generic Christ, then a band, and then us, or Destined to Ruin, and then whatever. So this other band was supposed to go on later, and this band had played there the night before.
Oh, I
And
remember this.
they put them on like before us. They didn't even need that band on the bill for some reason. That chick, and I remember I told her, how many times did me and you walk over there? And I'm like, I have to be on at a certain time because my wife used to deliver the newspaper, and I had kids, and I had to be home. And I was like, they booked this show, and I was very adamant about it. And it was like, listen, quit harping me. It'll be fine. That's what she kept saying. And then it wasn't fine. And
That
if
was
you
Ed's
remember,
last show.
dude, while that band
that
was on
place.
stage, I literally fucking stopped the show. Remember, I'm like, get my fucking gear off the stage because I was done. I wasn't playing the show. I'm like,
That
I
was-
told you, I warned you, like, you're not going to shit on us because that band sucked. They were fucking garbage, man.
Well,
They
that
were
was your last
garbage.
show there. Besides when you would go perform Pornoki.
That's true. That's right. Pornoki.
Saturday nights when you were doing that. Besides
Yep.
that, that's how
With
they ended.
my-
Actually, was Pornoki
with my Indian flap.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what your Indian flap. But that's no more Pegasus Lounge.
Yeah.
I played there a few times. We all
Never
we all-
played. I never went to the new one.
No, we played it when it was the Brass Mug. Me and you with
Correct.
with the Toxic Holocaust show with them
Yep.
and the Casualties. We
Cannibal.
played that show. Yeah, so we did that. Was that the Cannibal? Was that? Yeah, we played with
Yes.
Cannibal Corpse there
Yep.
and Promethean Horde and stuff. But so that place is done. So we hate to see a venue close down, but the Pegasus Lounge is closed. And I kind of mixed.
R.I.P.
I kind of mixed shows and news together because it's mostly shows that I saw tours released or. So I'm going to run through these, and Ed, what I think we're talking about saving the releases till after Count Gore comes on, Duvall, because we were saying that like we'll do this segment here, we'll get Count on, talk to him for a little bit because I know he's limited on time, and then we'll jump back in, announce the releases coming up, and then say goodbye, and then we'll be back. Now we're back. The show's functioning again, so it's
I do want to say that it's been what 20 years since Dimebag passed too.
Yeah, I saw that December 8th.
I mean, three dudes, man, which is crazy. Like in December, whether they were born, because even 4, if you count Ralph Santola, you know what I mean. But what's crazy is that it doesn't seem like it's been 20 years. And I remember where I was, man. I was at a Sports Authority assembling bikes, and I remember it came over this show that I used to listen to, and it popped up all over the phone and it's popping up everywhere. And I was like, this got to be fucking, fake.
Made you sick to your stomach when I was working for the Rivet Rag magazine at that time.
did.
And I remember like just, we were hitting NAMM and stuff.
When I found out where it was really freaked out because the Alrosa Villa is the club where in Ohio, where in Columbus, where he was killed. And I remember playing that club, with Diabolic on that Cannibal tour we did with Hate Eternal and God Dethroned. And when I heard that, I was like, man, I could remember we walked to a store. Now, mind you, we've got credentials. Like I've got laminates, and they were fucking with us coming back in the club, like the security. So I'm thinking, how did this dude jump the gate, like they said, and just walk backstage and then get in and on a Dimebag show? Because, the difference between Cannibal Corpse and Damage
that was
Plan.
Damage Plan, yeah, right.
It's huge. They were huge. You know what I mean? I mean that even though they were playing a club like that, it's got Dimebag, so they're definitely huge, and they have a crew and an entourage of people that probably travel with them. And yeah, that's just
it was sickening. And we were talking earlier today, me and you, that I had dealt with Dimebag. He was an awesome guy, very nice. Everything you heard about that dude seemed to be like such very genuine. And it's crazy that it's 20 years. And I just remember so we went to NAMM that same year for the magazine with the music convention over in Los Angeles. So we went to that, and I remember they actually had Vinnie Paul, who's also deceased now, had it was like a gathering, and me and Jack, who ran the magazine at that time or who owned the magazine, he was pretty much the main dude of the magazine. We went to this event, and Vinnie Paul was there. Jerry Cantrell was there. Who else was there? I mean, there was a lot of people. Zach Wilde was there. It was a whole bunch of people. And I remember it's a very weird feeling because everyone was getting together, but it was all in remembrance of Dimebag. And there's actually a poster that Dean put out that year. Some people may have seen. I know it hangs at Circle Studios. Ed, you may have seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. So that was from that event. And I'll never forget that. And, Vinny was there, and it was a weird
It's just
vibe.
a terrible time, man. And
Yeah.
when you think about like the musicians like him or today, actually, 23 years ago today, Chuck died.
Yeah,
Chuck Schuldiner. So, I mean, and what's crazy is Warrell Dane died today in 2017. They both died the same fucking day. And to think that Warrell's been gone 7 years now, people
that's in 7 years.
may not know who he is, but Warrell Dane was the singer for Sanctuary and Nevermore. And both of those bands, I mean, was a huge influence on me, especially Nevermore, because they were just Jeff Loomis, the way they wrote the songs, the albums. They were just, when I was in a dark time, man, that shit was great for me. And when the sucky part was he died in Brazil. To die in another country, man, is crazy. You know what I mean? I couldn't imagine having to have your body shipped back home. I mean,
me and my wife talk about that. I'm like, listen, when I kick it, because I'm living in Eastern Europe right now. I guess carry me around in a vase till you figure out where you're going to go one day. Because I just don't want to be like tossed in Lithuania and everybody moves back to fucking America.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, toss me in the trash. It's like no, just drag me along, man. I won't take up too much space. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Ralph, you mentioned Ralph too, which I know we mentioned him on. It must have been a year ago. We talked. I think we mentioned it when it was the anniversary.
Yeah.
Last year of this, and it's just
and people may have misconceptions of Ralph, but he was a fucking great dude. He was the nicest guy. Every time I saw him, he was always. Now this guy has played with some of the best dudes on the planet, man.
Deicide, Obituary. I mean,
I'm talking even old metal bands, early days.
Oh yeah.
And he was always just like no ego whatsoever. I remember seeing him. Me and Terry saw him at Vakken, and it was the strangest thing in the world because it was a mud pit because of all the rain. Like it rained 4 or 5 days before Vakken, so people were sleeping in their tents filled with 4 to 5 inches of water. And I'm like, how are you sleeping in that? But they were. Dudes were sliding in mud puddles that people were pissing in. It was the strangest shit I've ever seen. But I remember we were in this little bar area that once you got in, you couldn't get out without getting. Like the mud was like 2 inches, 3. You know that muck when you step in it and you sink. That's what it was like. But somebody had laid down some plywood, so we got in there. We were just having a couple beers, chilling. And I remember I turned around and I saw this dude standing there, and he looked like Greystoke, covered head to toe in fucking mud. Remember, like Rambo when he was against the wall and he opened his eyes, and when he was going to kill. And I'm like,
like a chameleon.
And I'm like, what the fuck was that? And Terry saw it, and then all of a sudden I looked at Terry, and I looked back, and he was gone. What was Ralph? He had been out there fucking sleeping and partying and the shit. He was head to toe in muck, and he finally came up and talked to us. But I was like, holy shit. He was a lifer, man. He lived in Europe for a little while.
He was also in the last thing I think he was doing. He might have been doing something else because you can't confirm. He was doing Devil's Highway with Kyle Thomas.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
That's the last thing I remember. But yeah, Ralph. He's always a Tampa legend. Just a legend in general. But I mean, yeah. So that's definitely a good mention, Ed. And what else did I say? I saw a bunch of talking about things like legendary thing or legend Acid Bath. I saw is they're doing shows again. I saw they were playing at
Milwaukee Metal Fest.
And for Florida so far, the only thing I've seen is Daytona Beach, Florida in May. Welcome to Rockville. They'll be playing, I guess. So,
which is crazy.
I would love to see them at a small club like I guess we would call the State Theater when it was still the State Theater. Now it's the Floridian or the Ritz or something like that. Or of course, you'd love to see him at the Brass Mug. But this should be. I'm sure this will be a big gig. So they're coming. I saw Mortician, Implosive, Disgorgence, MRSA, Tooth, and Mind Virus will be playing That's kind of a far away date, but I just saw it get announced, so I'll mention it anyway. Saturday, March 29th, 2025, at Three Tides Restaurant and Bar in Port St. Lucie. It's doors at 6:21 and only. Dead Dreams Booking is putting on that show. I saw Pete. It's an Indoxa booking, right? Niles, 6 Feet Under, Embryonic Autopsy, Psychroptic is playing. So they're going to actually playing January
Orpheum.
12th at the Orpheum. It's the Revenge of the Underworld tour. That's January 12th. They're also playing on January 10th in Orlando at the Abbey, and that's the same lineup. I see that get announced. Let me see here. King Diamond, I saw he announced the European tour. Spring Summer 2025 tour with Paradise Lost, Angel Witch, and Unto Others. Well, Unto Others is who we saw them with a couple years ago in Florida, Ed. It starts June 4th, takes place, let me see here, Sweden, Poland, Germany, Czech, Denmark, Belgium, Spain, Finland, Norway, and there's more places too, but that's taking place and starts on, like I said, June 4th. Then I saw Danzig, Down, Abath, and the Cro-Mags announced a tour March 2025. And it's a U.S. tour, but it's West Coast dates, so I don't think it's lost. Yeah, I don't think you'll be seeing it.
No.
Starts March 21st.
There is an, I don't know if you saw this one, but Decapitated, Incantation, Darkest Hour, and Ex Mortis are playing February 4th at the Orpheum.
I didn't see that one.
I don't know if they're playing Orlando. I didn't see that, but they're definitely playing Tampa. Oh, yeah, February 4th. And Aborted is playing March 8th at the Orpheum.
So I didn't see that either. I did see, let me see what else I saw. Well, I saw Wasp was going to do the same thing. I just saw Wasp, what was it, the day after our show. So I saw them like November 24th in Orlando. But they're playing, they're going to tour again, and they're going to do a European tour. They're going to play the whole first album, is what we saw. It's the 40th anniversary of the first Wasp record. Came out in 1984. So far, dates are Germany, France, Netherlands, Serbia, Italy, Switzerland, Luxembourg, Poland, Greece, Austria, Bulgaria, Sweden, and Spain. And there's going to be more, I believe, also. And Ed, we didn't talk about this, and I haven't talked to you about this even, but Nico McBrain played his final gig with Iron Maiden December 7th.
Yes.
In San Paulo.
I saw that, and, after his stroke, I think he realized maybe, because I know it took him a while to get his coordination back, which, I mean, he had a fucking stroke. What do you expect? But yeah, I mean, you look at Maiden, and I'm like, I'm 53, and I'm like, Jesus, man, these dudes were playing when I was in my early years. You know what I mean? With Paul Di'Anno, their first record was 81? Was 10 years old.
Now
it's
Paul's
crazy.
gone too, as we talked about a few episodes ago.
Yep.
He passed away. Nico, I saw they put the announcement on ironmaiden.com. 42 years. I did do a kind of like a letter to the fans. He's being replaced by Simon Dawson from British Lion, which, they played at the Mug, actually, Harris's band.
Yep.
But yeah, so Nico McBrain retiring. He deserves. The guy's been around for a long time. He's done it all. Like, enjoy your retirement, man.
Absolutely.
Has the rib place over there in Florida. I mean, and anybody in the Tampa Bay area listening to this show, today is the 3rd. So you'll probably hear this tonight, but tomorrow, DRI is playing at the Brass Mug with Killed by Florida, Swamp Tooth, Piss Test, and Bad Future. $20, 5:30 at the doors. If you're listening to this a day too late, it's over. But it's December 14th. And that, yeah. So, I mean, Ed, I think that's, let me see here. I think we mentioned everything. Well, I know that Count's trying to get on, because like I said, he's probably got like a little bit over an hour with us. He's got some stuff going on. We'll get him on, and then we'll wrap up the show. We'll mention all the upcoming releases that we have. What do you think? Sound good to you?
I'm in. Number 69, baby.
69. Count gets to be on episode number 69. So let me see. Let's get him on here. 1 second. We are joined for a second time by the legendary creature feature host, a member of the Horror Host Hall of Fame, a vampire who appreciates a penthouse pet or two, a graduate of Southern Illinois, also known for his alter egos, Captain 20, Bozo the Clown, just to name a few, the man, the myth, the legend, the producer, the DJ, the hypnotist, the legendary Dick Dizelle, a.k.a. Count Gore Duvall, or should I say Count Gore Duvall, a.k.a. Dick Dizelle.
Yeah, let's do it that way this time. Yes, because you got to deal with the person you're dealing with here. Multi personalities. Looking
Cal,
deep
we're so
into
glad
my
to have you back,
eyes.
man. We are so glad to have you back on the show, man. We talk about you a lot on, when you're not here. You come up in a lot of our episodes. Me and Ed
I've heard
both
people
grew up.
talk about that. Yes, they're listening. I'm monitoring you.
Nice. Yeah. Well, like I said, man, we're so glad to have you back. And first of all, before we even start, we've had you on the show. We actually had you on the show December 1st, 2023 last year. You were on for almost 3 hours. We had you on episode 22. We talked about your whole career. We followed everything. So tonight we're going to kind of do it a little different. We are going to mention some of the pinpoints for people who are about to meet you this weekend over in Tampa, or upcoming in January in Tampa, Clearwater area. So we're going to cover a little bit of stuff with that, so people who haven't heard the episode, but anybody who wants to hear about Count Gore's whole career, you can go back to episode 22. I mean, we cover everything. I mean, we cover everything from cockroach-filled hotel rooms.
Whoa. You didn't edit out that stuff I asked you? No.
We kept that. That was our special, segment.
Yeah.
But we talked to you about everything on that episode. So anybody who wants to go back and learn about your whole career can go there. We are going to talk about some stuff tonight with that. But first of all, I want to ask you, man, did you have any hurricane damage over at the castle or anything?
No, not at all. Helene was just way too far out, and Milton. I've never seen a hurricane like this before, to be honest with you. It was so far out. It was a strange hurricane. I know a lot of people aren't used to hurricanes, but usually these things with these bands that come out. This was, as it came by this part of Florida, the band was the hurricane was in the middle of the Gulf, and the first band was way out on the East Coast in West Palm. Matter of fact, the first death was in West Palm from this hurricane. It was a very bizarre thing. Only got an inch of rain. Wind never got above 70 miles an hour. I mean, this was like a Sunday walk.
Wow. Yeah, so it was, I know like over the Tampa area, it got hit. I mean, we're over in St. Petersburg and those areas, and there's a lot of destruction. But I'm glad you didn't have to deal with a lot, and I guess we'll start out. We're going to do this a little different, like I said, than the last interview. But first, let's start with anything you want to promote. Because we're going to talk about, you're going to be at Sunday, January 19th, 2025. You are going to be at TampaBayScreams.com. So we'll start out with that.
Well, okay. This is my first convention in Central Florida. I have done Pensacon up in Pensacola but I haven't been there back for a number of years now. I'm excited about it. It's the first one-day convention I've ever done. It's on Sunday, the 19th. Actually, I'll be there from noon till 6. It's at the OCC
Roadhouse and Museum.
I don't remember the full title. I'm getting that correct?
Yeah, that's right. 10575 49th Street, North Clearwater, Florida.
Well, I always tell my people, just go to TampaBayScreams.com and get all the details. And there's a plethora of people. There are filmmakers, there's actresses, wrestlers, bodacious babes, a few other people too. No, you know how I am. Aaron Brown's going to be there, and Chris Woods. I'm throwing names off there. So many people, but it's Sunday the 19th. It's like I said, it's Tampa Bay Screams, but it's actually in Clearwater. But that's okay, and it should be fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
Now, are you a big fan of cons?
I love cons. I love meeting the people. I mean, getting a bite on a beautiful neck is one of my highlights of every convention. The more, the better. But that aside, I like talking to horror fans. I'll be honest with you, what I don't like about conventions, I don't like just sitting there. I mean, there's nothing worse. I'm a guy of action. Just to sit there for 5, 6, 12 hours with a pen in hand, waiting for someone to come along and say, please, can I get your autograph? Yeah, come on over and say, talk to me. Hey, yeah, let's talk horror. Let's talk movies. Let's talk whatever.
Playmates.
So a lot of times you won't even see me sitting at the table. I'll be walking around. I'm a pacer. But yeah, I do like conventions. Like this is the first one-day convention. Normally, the ones I've been to are usually 3 days: Friday night, Saturday, and half a day Sunday. And then a couple of them are doing just Saturday and partially Sunday. But yeah, they're fun. They're fun to do. And I don't go too far. The farthest one I've ever been to was in Dallas, Fort Worth, and that was fun. I've been. The biggest convention I've ever been to was Awesome Con with 46,000 people in a weekend.
Wow.
Just me and David Tennant and a few other people of slight note. That one convention was really fun because on one side they had this big wall of A celebrities. I'm on the C wall. Ooh, never thought about that. Anyway. One side was William Shatner. The other side was George Takei. And they kept them as far away from each other.
They don't like each other. Yeah,
that was fun.
What's the worst convention experience you've had? There has to be, I know you've done some, there has to be like you said, sometimes I've seen it where you go to some and there's nobody there or they're never fun, but.
Well, I don't really. Well, again, part of the Awesome Con experience was loading into a more than 100,000 square foot facility and dealing with, union drivers and stuff. I mean, the logistics sometimes, that's probably the worst part. I like a convention that is go to get in, set up, and do it. If I can do performances, I'll tell you one of my best experiences at a convention. And this is absolutely true. This was at Awesome Con, and Billy Piper, who played Rose Tyler on Doctor Who. This was a Doctor Who convention. Well, there were a number of Doctor Who people there, and my job was to moderate her Q&A. Okay, so my job is to be a host. I do that very well, and the whole thing is, I said, look out! There's going to be a long line. You need to cut off the line and time it so that the last person gets in to ask the question and get an answer before we cut it off. And we're going to cut it off at exactly an hour. Okay, I can do that. So I get to meet Billy. Okay, first of all, obviously the downside of the part of the convention people don't realize is that a lot of the stuff goes on in the hallways between rooms where they move food and tables. It's service hallway. So I'm standing there, and in comes Billy with her handler, and we talk a little bit. She's very pleasant, and I asked how she wants it handled. And fine. She asked how I would like to do it. I said I'm going to do this, and I said I'm going to do an open that you may not be ready for, because why is there this horror host vampire doing Doctor Who? I figured that was going to be a problem. So I had to get that out of the way. And I basically was going to say, I didn't watch Doctor Who until I saw this episode called Rose. And then I fell in love. And here she is. And, something like that. Anyway, so we come in, we do this thing. I'm knocking it out right exactly at an hour. The last person Billy gives the answer. I thank her. We go out the hall, and she says to me, would it be all right if I get a picture with you? I'm going, no, that's my line. So I said, well, let's make you a deal. You can get a picture with me, and I won't even charge you. But that aside, I want a picture with you. So she says, we can get a mutually picture together. So her handler took the pictures. I'm flying high. This is a really major, at that point, she was on the show. She was doing it. She was big time celebrity. And I go back to my table and I talk to my business manager. I said, and I'm just, I'm floating a little. And I go, beside myself. So if I'm coming down a few minutes later, this guy at a horror convention or a horror science fiction comic convention, a guy in a three-piece gray suit, all tucked up. I mean, just beautiful suit, comes up to me and I go, "Oh, what did I do wrong?" So he comes up and says, "Excuse me," and with a very British accent, he says, "I don't do the British accents." He said, "Excuse me, I want to. I'm Billy Piper's manager." And now I'm thinking, "Oh, what did I do wrong?"
You're like, I owe her $10 for the photo. You're thinking,
Yeah, something like that. 10? Are you kidding? That thing, that convention was like going for 50, maybe more. Anyway, he said, "I just wanted to come over and thank you. You're such a professional, such and so nice to Billy. I just can't tell you how much she appreciates it. I appreciate it." He said, "Let me shake your hand. Thank you very much." And he walks away. Okay, now I'm 6 feet off the ground. Yeah, that was my best convention experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll remind everybody about the convention when we finish talking
Yes.
to you today. And I said we're
Tampa
going to
Bay Screams, January
.com.
19th.
Yep. Tampa Bay
All right.
Screams. Okay, so we know you're a music guy, so
Yes.
we wanted to bring up some of this stuff with you because, like I said, we've talked about a lot of stuff with you. We're going to touch on some of your career stuff too. But so first of all, I know you were born in Chicago, Illinois. I'm going to ask you before I even get to music. I know you do watch some baseball. Were you a Cubs fan or a White Sox fan?
For all my life, up until I basically early 2000s, I was a Cub fan, which was really difficult for me because I lived on the South Side. So when the White Sox went to the World Series in '59, I was the only guy on the South Side hiding under my bed so the mobs wouldn't get me. But I was my father got tickets. The first ball game he took me to was the Cub game in Wrigley Field. He had tickets from somebody. I got a team ball autographed. I met some of the umpires. It was a major experience in my life. And how could I not be a Cub fan? I turned my daughters into Cub fans. So then they still talk to me. So,
Nice.
But when the Cubs, at some point I said when the Nats came to Washington, I said, okay, I've got to be a Nats fan, and I've been a Nats fan ever since.
Okay. And so, and the music thing. So do you actually, like I said, I know you're a fan of rock and roll music. We talked about that in the last episode. Do you recall the first piece of music that really caught your attention that you heard where you were just like, whether it be, back, I know you were born in 47, so it's totally, it's a whole different world back then.
I was raised on a lot of different music. I loved the big band sounds. I loved the musicality of the instruments, mixing, blending, doing subtext. And I really loved the big band sound. Of course, now I was into rock and roll when rock and roll was coming up. So come 56, 57, there was no really good rock station in Chicago until 1960. And that's when WLS went from a country format to a 50,000 watt rocker. But the first 45 I bought was a Chipmunk song. It was Christmas.
I think everybody had that, right, Ed? You had one of those. We all had that.
And it's like, but I come from a Polish-Lithuanian background, so I was familiar with polkas. I could polka. I always had problems with dancing the jitterbug because I thought mistakenly that there were actually fixed steps because I would watch these dance party shows on television. And then I didn't realize that these kids actually had choreographed this stuff weeks ahead of time and practiced it before they came out in the show. Then I started going to school dances and I realized that no one knows what the heck they're doing. In high school, I was a twist champ. In fact, we just did a session where we're talking about this movie has a twist. And I mentioned the fact, oh, by the way, I was a twist champ in high school. And let's twist again. Anyway, all that aside, I wasn't the twist champ. I had the best looking girl in the room. Every time I went to a dance, I always brought the best girl I could find. And we always won. Not because we were dancing, not because of me, because they had the hottest girl in the room. So I learned that real quick. But I do like all sorts of music. When I started my DJ company, which is after I left Channel 20 in 1987, that's when I really came into my own because that way I could do. I loved contemporary music, obviously. I'll tell you, and I know you're gonna bring this up. the one genre of contemporary music that I was probably not as versed on was metal. I was doing primarily DJ work. I was primarily doing weddings, and there were very few requests for metal music at weddings. That being said, guy comes up to me at this one and says, "I want you to DJ my wedding." I said, "Fine." He said, "I'll provide the music." Why? He says, "Because I don't think you have the kind of metal music that I want at my wedding." And he was right. But he says, "I know you can mix it and I know you could MC it." So we did. And it was the most awesome thing. We actually did metal sets. We did pop sets. We did polka sets. Because when you're doing a wedding, it's a multi-generational crowd. But when I put the metal sets on, I was just amazed. There's Granny out there, gray hair down to back, bouncing, and she was having a great time. Everyone was having fun. So yeah, the only music I probably have shied away from was Bavarian folk music.
Bavarian folk.
We had actually back in the 80s, early mid 80s, we had some interesting groups that were providing me with music videos of their independent productions. And we showed it at the end after the movie. I had the 700 Club followed me, and no one really cared if Pat Robertson was held back another 10 minutes. So I would put on these videos, and I just found some of them, and they're kind of interesting because it's, again, this was, I don't even know what they were shot with, but they did a good job on this thing. We had a lot of interesting music on there.
Nice. And it was something we had talked about before we came on that a lot of people who listen to the show will relate with. But first, before I ask you, it's going to kind of blend into this question, but your first concert you ever attended, your first rock concert, we'll say, or you can give us both, actually, if you have something else that you actually attended that wasn't a rock concert.
I didn't attend a lot of concerts, first off. The first concert I actually attended was with a group. We were on dates and we were trying to impress our dates romantically. So we went to a Johnny Mathis concert. But by the time I got into the 60s, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, I was a huge Blood, Sweat, and Tear fan. I really got into the mix of rock and jazz. I thought that was an interesting fusion. Did the Carpenters. These were all on campus. Then we did later on. I did the reunions of Cream, Journey. But again, I just when I was for 10 years I was living in Chicago, and Chicago is a unique scene. They have a lot of garage bands, and that some of it in the 60s. The New Colony 6 was one. Matter of fact, they were on the south side of Chicago, and we used to go. They would do these small concerts in these small suburban towns, and they were always fun to do because it was very informal and you get to know the folk. So, but that's it for concerts.
And with our show, a lot of people have seen you have some ties to Heavy Metal Parking Lot that we were talking about before you came on, and a lot of our listeners have probably seen this before. So, could you explain your part in the?
Oh, it's been a while since I've seen it. Well, Jeff Krulik, he's a Washington filmmaker. He went out to the Capitol Center and he interviewed fans who were going into the Capitol Center for heavy metal concert. And I'll be honest with you, I don't now remember exactly what I did. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I know Jeff keeps reminding me of it, that I was a major part of it. I go, okay, I'm not going to argue with you. But that I can't go beyond that because I haven't seen it in probably 15 years.
Okay. And for yourself, like some of your favorite bands, I know I think we had talked before, you were into like Three Dog Night and like Creedence and stuff like that. Was that some of your favorite, like,
well,
the 70s, 60s combo, so to say?
Yeah, in my formative years, I mean, college is where the music really came into its own for me. And yeah, so you're talking about 60s, 70s, 80s. I flowed with the thing. I mean, Yeah, Three Dog Night. How can you not like a group that had 21 not number one songs? Come on.
Yeah. Three
Blood, Sweat, and
vocalists.
Tears. Gosh, well, some of the garage bands, the Buckinghams. Then we go on later. I really got into disco. Donna Summer. I mean, I had a short time. I had a disco party show on Channel 20, and I had a life-size cutout of Donna Summer. I'd walk on the set and give her a kiss and say, "Let's do the show." But again, once I got into the DJ business, which I started in '87, I just liked everything. There was one interesting thing came up. It was in it was in the 2000s, and I was with the American Disc Jockey Association at the time, the local chapter, and this guy comes up to me. He says, "Could you co-DJ a wedding reception for me?" And I figured he wanted me to do the oldies because I was considerably older than him. And no, he said, no, I want you to do the contemporary stuff. Huh? He said, you know better than I do. I know all that oldie stuff, but you know how to do it. I'm going, okay, whatever you want. So I can't put names together. Oh gosh, there were so many hits in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. I always wonder what they were called, 2000s, 2K, yeah, okay. And they just, the funny thing is, from my standpoint, is I know so much music I'm familiar with for so long, but it kind of washes over me, and then I realize that an oldie today is something that was 5 years ago, and I'm going, I couldn't do a party today. I mean, I right now I am not inclined to. I listen to contemporary music, but I don't pay much attention to it. So.
Well, and what's some of the, I know you were part of, but you were in the DC scene, at the age you were at and stuff. I know you were part of you guys were going to the bars and the clubs back then in the 70s. What was it? Is it like we think, when we think of those, is the party as like crazy as we think it was back in those days back then?
I can't answer that because
that's how good it is.
I did not do the scene. Okay. You have to understand something up front. And I think I mentioned this in our last interview. I had learned by watching other performers that in many cases they got staritis and they put their career in front of everything else. And I saw where it ended up. Matter of fact, I got my job in Washington because the guy just went off, hey, I'm a star, blah, 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 and he got fired. So I separated my professional life from my family life. And I did not I was also living out in the suburbs. I mean, I did a couple of the seats. I did some of the bars downtown in Georgetown, and there was nothing extraordinary about it. I'll be honest with you. I mean, they had good music. They had bands. Most of them were doing DJs back in the 80s in particular. Heck, I was DJing in high school. Come to think of it, we didn't know what DJs were, but I was doing it. So no, I can't answer the question. I know from people like Barry Richards and other people who did that was a pretty wild scene, but I didn't participate.
Well, I do remember you actually saying you were told actually by, I don't know if it was a manager or somebody that told you to separate, like you had said, remember that your character, people are going to put it together. It was something like that you had told us back in last December. So, and jumping ahead to your, obviously to, characters and stuff like that, is the first time you ever played a vampire was a haunted attraction in '69?
Actually, yeah, it was in Paducah, Kentucky. It was the recreation department was having a haunted walk. And this was something new they were trying. And the guy who was renting an apartment with me, his girlfriend was with the Parks Department. And she said, well, I know you're going to be doing this horror show on TV. Could you be our vampire? And we still hadn't announced that we were going to do this. And but I said, yeah, let's do this. It was fun. My job was actually more of a troll. My job was to hide under, they had this bridge over this little creek just for landscaping purposes. And I would hide under there. I would come up and that was it. It was kind of fun. I did for a while back in the 70s for a teen group that I was working with. I produced for 3 years a haunted house with them that was really good. I was a producer. One thing I probably didn't say much about, I always looked at myself first as a producer, and then because I didn't have anyone else, a budget for anyone else, I'd be the talent. It really wasn't until I was leaving Channel 20 in the 80s that I really took it on that, oh, I own this character. This is me. And I'm not only a producer, but I have to put myself into that character more than anything else. So yeah, that's how that worked.
And those who are listening who don't know, you can go back and listen to this on episode 22, that you actually own, which was, we told you last time we had you on, which was awesome, that you actually own your character. You have, it's your, you own everything to do with Count Gore Duvall, which is very smart when you did that. So I know we had talked about that before. So
I beat George Lucas.
Yeah.
by a couple of years. Although we didn't have any merchandise, but since merchandise came later, it was mine anyway. So that's it.
And you can find merchandise on countgoreduvall.com.
Yeah.
But I remember the t-shirts on there. But so, and for you, your first actual TV appearance was on the 10 p.m. news, right? On WDXR.
Oh, well, my first television appearances were always all at the same time, because when the station in Paducah went on, WDXR, which no longer exists, when it went on, the first thing I did was Bozo the Clown, then the 10 o'clock news, and then on Saturdays after the 10 o'clock news at 10:20, I went into makeup and did the count. So yeah, what we did since we were doing everything, it was like you can't do one thing without the other.
You wore a lot of hats though at that time period, like you're saying now. And for you, did you enjoy, like, I think I had read that you actually liked being part of a small, I'm trying to think how to say it, like a town, like a channel that was in a small area. You learned a lot from that, like local market, a small local market, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, a small market. This Paducah was a perfect market for me to start because it was 50,000 plus people in the metro area. So it was big enough to have some activities going on. And it was an exciting news station. And I had an opportunity not to make any money, but to learn a lot about how to produce a program, how to produce shows, how to write, how to be the characters, how to do makeup. All of this came wrapped up in one, and then one thing led to another. It's like learning from one thing to get to the other. And it got me, I did the big jump from the 77th market to the 8th market in one jump. And that's huge. I mean, I would never have guessed when I got into broadcasting. It was usually, I was not looking at TV. I was looking at radio because I love music. And I started at a country station, then went to a rocker. But it was, you figure you start at a small station, then you go to a little bit bigger station, then you go to a little bit bigger station, then you go to a little big, and then when you have a good reel and you know what you're doing, then you start looking at the major markets. I mean, sure, when I got out of college, I had my degree in radio and television. I sent my a little demo tape to all the major stations in Chicago and heard that much from them. But I didn't expect to have anything like that happen.
And I know, like, when you were also a kid, you were like sneaking around, listening, like watching at late at night, the shock packages on the TVs and stuff. And actually something that I didn't ask you the last episode, which I'm kind of surprised, what was the first horror movie you ever remember seeing? Whether it be horror or sci-fi, whatever.
The Mummy.
Okay.
That was the first one that when I got the pillow off my bed, put it over the tuner. So when you clicked it, you wouldn't hear the thing. And then I had, it was difficult to try to hear it because the speaker went off the side. My parents' bedroom was off that side. So I was kind of watching and listening at the corner of the TV. Said, yeah, but it was The Mummy. Okay. But then that was followed, but they were showing, because it was the shock package, they were showing the biggie. So yeah, that was, and then by the time, after a couple of weeks of this, I said, Mom, look, this is ridiculous. I'm going to do this. You're not going to stop me. Let's make an arrangement. I would do this on Saturday night. They go, okay, fine.
And who was your favorite Creature Feature host? of all time?
Wow, my favorite me.
There you go. Hey.
I'll be honest with you. It goes along in school where they said when you're running for class office, never vote for yourself, and I go, why? No, I I I ended up really liking what I do. I thought Marvin, who was my first host, I thought he was good. I find really good things in almost everything. I'm always looking for other hosts and what I can steal, because we do that, and we do that in a sharing way. Um, so I mean, Elvira has a couple of things on me that I'll never have, which is probably good. Um, uh, Especially in Florida. We won't talk about that. Um, but yeah, yeah. Dr. Paul Bearer, he had a unique. I loved his style, and his Rich Coons, who's doing Dr. Paul Bearer the second, and is back on. He does a good job like that. Uh, uh, but yeah, I steal wherever I can. I enjoy it all.
Who's your favorite scream queen?
Ooh.
Yeah, I've never heard you say this, so I thought I was like, we didn't.
No one's
cover this
ever
last
asked
time.
me that. I'm tempted to say Brink Stevens, because I know her. But I don't know if she's considered a scream queen, but I think my all-time favorite horror actress would be Lynn Lowry, who did Shivers and The Crazies, and who is still really active in doing independent films. I see her regularly at conventions, and I just love getting together with her. She's just a delightful person. So yeah, um, my favorite scream. She wasn't a scream queen, but my favorite female interview was at uh, oh gosh, Cinema Wasteland, and it was. They always have a adult performer at that convention,
Yes.
and I'm trying to remember.
Ginger Lynn or
No, she was the uh, soap girl. Oh gosh. Anyway, it'll come to me. And unfortunately, we really got along great. Had a great time at the convention, and then a year later, she died. So, oh well.
You mentioned Dr. Paul Bearer. So, did you actually know Dick Bennett from the one from St. Pete? Who he was the St. Pete host for all those years. Did you actually ever get to meet him?
No, unfortunately not. Again, this is one of those cases, like I mentioned in the first interview, that we didn't get when you're in a market and before VHS and beta and stuff like this. You didn't get to see people in other markets unless you went to visit them. I finally got to see retroactively after he had passed, and some of the pieces of his show got put on. I think that my first exposure to him was in the mid '90s. We were both on a Dick Clark's practical jokes, bloopers and practical jokes. And every year for Halloween, they did a collection of horror hosts. It was hosted by Elvira. And they had several clips from Dr. Paul Bearer. That's where I got to see him the first time.
Okay.
And like I said, then I talked with Rich, and he gave me more of the backstory of the doctor. So yeah, that was the first time I was aware that Florida had a horror host.
Yeah, he was great. And we're talking about horror hosts. Obviously, we mentioned at the beginning of the show, I believe, that you're a member of the Horror Host Hall of Fame. That I think was 2011. Like Vampira, Zachary. I think there was 13 people that year inducted into that. And
I think I'm the only one still alive.
yeah, because it was Van Gooley, Jerry Bishop, Dr.
The original, yeah. It's interesting. There was a big article in the Chicago Tribune a couple of weeks ago for Halloween, and it was a big retrospective about Rich Cause, Ben Gooley. And I learned I know Rich. I mean, but we never really got talking about his how he got started. And this was covered in that article. And it was fascinating. I didn't realize that he actually was a personal friend of Jerry G. Bishop.
Yeah, he was actually
So
Jerry brought him on to work with him.
yeah, and it was quite fascinating. And I was very pleased that because of my association with the Horror Host Hall of Fame, and that they brought, and I was a Chicago kid, that I got mentioned in the article, and that was kind of cool. It was like a 3-page article with lots of pictures, really good. I mean,
well, you never had it. It was never a goal of yours, was it, to be in the Horror Host Hall of Fame? And yours was like a mixture of like longevity and just tons of you've done tons of quality work, and that was never in your mind, really.
No, I enjoy what I do, and I'm not going to make a lot of money off of it. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I cover the expenses, but I enjoy it. I own it, and I feel very close to this persona. Yes. Yeah, so I was very, very thrilled. I mean, obviously, the recognition was nice. So yeah, I mean, I'll take the recognition where I can get it, but I'm not going to let it go to my head or my fingers or my wallet or anything like that. Yeah. Actually, I do like meeting young people who are getting into the business, and I won't say mentoring them, but answer their questions and help them miss some of the pitfalls that they can get into. I mean, I'm not going to be around forever, in spite of the fact that vampires don't die, supposedly.
That's right.
So anyway, yeah. So no, that never was a big deal for me. I mean, it was a big deal, but it wasn't a big deal. You know what I mean? It's good.
Well, like we had said too, you wore many hats, and one thing we have to mention, which we did mention on the last episode, we're going to touch. Like I said, I want to touch on a few things though that people might not realize when they meet you at this, if they come to the Clearwater Convention or not. But you got an Emmy in '84 for a show called Kids Break that premiered June 4th, 1980, and that was, you actually did 11 characters on that, including Howard Hughes, Milton M. Milton, Nick Numbers, to name some of them. And you weren't even supposed to have that gig, right? Like you were as the program director.
What happened was the station had been bought by Taft Broadcasting, and in order to get the station, during the transfer of ownership, the public has a chance to weigh in on whether or not the new owners are good or should be approved. And there was a group of parents. I can't remember what the full name was, but they were really upset about violence on children's television. So they
PMRC,
filed
PMRC by any chance?
No.
It
was a local group. Anyway, so Taft wanted desperately to get that thing. So they said they promised to have all, they'll still show Ultraman and Speed Racer, but so in addition to, we'll start doing these local programs. And so from the corporate end, I had been working with Taft to some programs that potentially could be networked. And then locally, the new program manager, who didn't like me at all, mainly because she didn't hire me, said, well, we're doing the show Kids Break, but and she made a point of it. You're not going to have anything to do with it. Fine, I'm loaded up to here. I don't care. And so they hired someone else to do this Kids Break. I didn't even know what the show was about. Her desk was right next to mine. I didn't even talk to her because I wasn't supposed to. About 6 weeks into it, I got called back in the program director as well. She says, well, the host decides she doesn't want to do the show anymore, so we're gonna have you do something. Okay. I said, how much time do I have to prep for it? She says, a week. Okay. So I had learned enough dealing with Sesame Street, just watching it and understanding and how they produce their shows, that the shows basically are compilations of lots of segments that are, so you can put them together so you can mix and match them and never have identical shows. So I said, what if we did a show where we had a host like a Johnny Carson, except he's big furry and he's a puppet, and then he's putting together this mix and match of shows. So we ended up creating all these different characters. We worked with the DC school system to come up with content, and so we have How to Tell Time. which would be interesting today because we did it analog. I think there'd be some interest in teaching kids how to read an analog clock. Do you ever think about this? Here you go. Do you ever think about this? If you don't know how to read an analog clock and someone says, turn it clockwise,
you're lost. Yeah.
I mean, even yeah. So anyway,
that's where Nick Numbers comes in.
Yeah. Well, Nick Numbers was addition. Timmy Time was time. I can't do it. I lost my falsetto. He was a freckle-faced redhead character. Anyway, we did all these characters, and I said, well, look, what we'll do is go in the studio, we'll shoot 20 or 30 of these and 20, 30 of these. And since I was the only talent in town, at least at the station, and we were a union station, they weren't going to pay for anybody else. So I ended up creating these different voices, and we did these characters, and then we had Howard put them together. One of the things we did in the middle of the show was do a remote feature because we had just gotten our remote cameras. And my intern at the time had an idea. She says, let's do one on animation. I said, well, what are we going to do? She says, well, I know this animation house that does commercials with claymation animation for Carrier air conditioning. And she says, I said, look, I'll tell you what, here you go. You give me a proposal, give me a budget, tell me what you need. I'll look at it, and if I approve it, you get to do it because I'm too busy. She says, what do I know about doing it? Well, if you put the proposal together and I approve it, you know enough to do it. So she did. And we put it in the show, and it won the Emmy. So I was 1 for 28. We had 28 nominations over my career.
Well, that show ran from 80 to 87, correct?
82.
82?
Pittsburgh was 82. 82 to 87, yeah.
So, and I wanted to ask, what was your, it might be a hard question for you to answer, but what is your least favorite show that you were involved with and your least favorite character? And obviously I'm going to say Count's probably your favorite, but you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Surprisingly, my favorite, as much as I like the Count, my favorite was Nick Numbers. Wow. I like the whole noir thing. And this guy's in a trench coat. He's got a fedora and he's walking from one street light to another. And it was so good because his head was in shadow, so you couldn't see the fact. I moved my mouth enough, but I wasn't saying anything. We would then voice over with what we were going to say, so it was cool. My least favorite. Wow. I guess at the end, Bozo. I hate to say it, but it was really draining show. I mean, you really put yourself into it with live kids. Doing everything was ad-libbed, and there was all dealing with kids. I know. I say don't deal with kids and animals. You never know what's going to come up. I'd probably say at this point, at the end, it was probably Bozo's my least favorite.
Okay. And if I'm I believe that Count, your show ran from 73 to 87. Last show was Memorial Day weekend, I believe.
Yeah,
and
Memorial Day weekend.
And then Channel 20 was sold to TVX Broadcasting. And for you, what was during that time period of TV? Because we're going to talk about your internet. You're the first internet host ever, which I don't think people even realize. But who were some of your favorite guests? I mean, obviously we know about the Penthouse Pest, Dominique, and them.
Hey, look,
but push them to the side or not. But
no, we didn't have a lot of guests. We had some local. The Penthouse Pets were the only really out of city people that came in, and the only reason they came to us is because we were the only ones that would put them on.
They're battling with Playboy.
Well, Playboy didn't have people coming around, so that was that simple. And so they would come around. They'd go to the other stations, and the other stations, oh no, we don't deal with adult magazines. So they would come over here. And I said, sure, come on, come over here. We had local guests. We had one of the more important one in my career was when we had filmmaker Don Dohler from Baltimore come on the show, and he mentioned he was making this movie called Alien Factor, and we finished, and I was very excited about what I heard, and I just turned to him and said, which was unlike me, and I said, "And why didn't you invite me to be in the movie?"
I remember this.
And he looked at me, he looked at the other filmmakers, and they looked at each other, and they said, Charlie Ellis said that. He said, well, we didn't think you'd be interested. I'm interested. So they went back and they expanded the role of the mayor, and then I did three films with Don: Night Beast, Alien Factor, Night Beast, and Galaxy Invader, and that was fun. Yeah. So that was, we had local filmmakers, who are celebrities. We had cosplay wasn't in yet, but I hosted at several science fiction conventions costume contests, and we had the costume contestants come on. We had Robbie the Robot on. What a great matter of fact! If cars had finishes like it was on that thing, it'd be beautiful. It was great. But the penthouse pets are always fun. I don't know. Did I mention the story about
Dominique when she with the award?
the what?
When the one where you had her on the show, and then you had went to, I think you went to Club Med or something. I don't know if it was.
Yeah. Well, there's another one. We didn't know that they were coming into town, and it was coming up about lunch. And so I said, this one of the salespeople says, "Hey, they're in town. Who? The Penthouse Pets. Ooh, I like that. When are you going to be here? They're in the lobby." What am I going to do? So I scramble. I talked to a couple of my crew people. I said, "Okay, look, put the coffin out. We don't have time to set it. Light it the best you can. Put a couple of the flats behind it. So we'll have 2 flats behind it in the coffin, and we'll just have her lean on the coffin." Okay. We didn't have time for teleprompter. So I get some big art cards. I'm printing the best I can what I want her to say. So I learned something about Penthouse from this. So I have, "Hi, I'm blank," because I didn't know what her name was. "You're watching Creature Feature." I'm okay. So I meet her. She's very pleasant. And I told her, I said, "Just hold up the art card. You just read it, and that'll be it. Okay, we'll do a couple of these." She said, "Okay, that's fine." So I'm holding it. Okay. And I said, when I go like that, read it. She said, "Okay." So she's leaning against her. And I hold it up and I go, "Hi, I'm..." God, what am I supposed to put in there? "Your name."
That's great.
Oh, okay. Now, wait a second.
Great.
Now, I'm thinking, was she some kind of bimbo in this? And there's a possibility here. So I said, "Just put your name in there." She said, "Okay." Cue. "Hi, I'm..." God, just which name? What do you mean, which name? Well, my real name or my professional name? It turns out that most of the Penthouse Pets were given a name, and she had just been given her name.
She forgot it?
And she was having trouble remembering it. So we finally wrote in her name so she wouldn't forget it. And that was one of the more interesting experiences.
Now, did you ever have any trouble with any guests? Was there ever a guest that you just couldn't stand or just was like, "Oh, this sucks to be around"?
Well, not on Creature Feature. Well, actually, there was an incident on Creature Feature. We had a contest called the Secret Rite of Springs contest. Then it was coming up, and I didn't know what to do. I said, "So what do you do as your personal secret rite when spring comes around?" I'm thinking witches out running around in the woods naked around the fire and all this stuff. Who knows? I was desperate. So this guy, the contest ended. It was not a very good contest, but it was the day after the deadline. And he calls me and says, "I just created a cantata, The Secret Rites of Spring for Count Gore Duvall." I said, "The contest is over." "Oh, but I'll tell you what, we won't say you're a winner. I can't give you the prize," which I think was, free dinner at a restaurant, "but you can come on the show and perform it." He goes, "Okay." So he shows up with a van. This is the 70s, so it was one of these tricked out Econoline vans, and it's a bunch of hippies. He's wearing chainmail. He's got frizzed out hair to here. You couldn't even see his face. There's so much beard. And it was like, okay. And I said, "Well, why all these people?" He said, "Well, they're the dancers." Okay. So we set up the whole studio. So there's nothing in the studio except the cycle around the background. I said, okay. we talk a little bit with the director. We're going to wing this one. So I said, okay, so you start, and then the dancers come on, and they dance for what, 5 minutes? He said, yeah, okay. Talk to my director, Lynn Sherrill. I said, okay, Lynn, just wing it, make it good so it's watchable. Boom. Okay. I'm Count Gore Duval, and we're going to have the secret rites of spring. And he's doing this whole thing on theremin. Okay. And out come the dancers. And as soon as they come out, I roll my eyes and go, oh, this is going to be a bust. But let's see what we get. Because one of the dancers was topless.
Hey.
Painted in blue paint. I said, well, it'll be something for the Christmas reel.
For your final episode party.
So the thing ends, and I take Rupert aside, and I said, we're probably going to have to do that again. He says, why? What was wrong? Oh, it was a perfect, your performance, blah, blah, blah. But even though her lovely breasts are painted blue, they're still naked. So I go upstairs, and I said, Lynn, she goes, don't talk to me. I said, what do we have? She says, we have 3 male cameramen, all of which were focused and fascinated with her nipples. So she has cuts of everything. We got very little. So that was probably one of the more interesting experiences. The one really negative one, though, and I'm not going to name names. This is when I was doing Bozo, and we had a film company coming through. They were doing a live action Alice in Wonderland, and they had this 13-year-old girl playing Alice. So we set up one part of the set that had the curtain that Bozo comes through. That's all we had set up, and we said, okay, we'll have you. The 2 of us will be behind the curtain. We'll hear the introduction, and then we'll come out and we'll talk about the movie. Okay. So, back in those days, it took a while to get the tape machines, up to speed and so forth and so on. So we're back there, and I'm just standing there talking with her. And suddenly she screams, don't do that to me. Don't touch me there. I burst through the curtain and go, what's going on here? They had chaperones and all this come to accuse me of doing all sorts of things. And she is in there giggling and thinking this is the biggest, funniest thing she's ever done in her entire life. And I'm going,
that's lame.
Not funny, kid. And
that's lame.
I'm going, you could, I said, look, you're going into being an actress. Imagine what's going to happen to you when someone pulls this on you and your career goes down the toilet. Don't ever do that again.
That's
well, I'm sorry. Okay. She didn't get much. She did some minor roles, but yeah.
That's crazy.
That was the worst experience I ever had.
And creative freedom was always a really big thing with you, right? Because I it's funny because just like talking to you and like, watching you or even knowing about some of your history, you actually had managers who told you they didn't want to even know what you were up to when you were in Washington, right? Just do what you were doing. You kind of had that because you were very much into having a hand in everything.
Yes. Culpable deniability was what they wanted. And I gave it to them. I had a very long leash. And it was appreciated. I got used to it. Even when I left the station for a while, I worked in Baltimore as a producer for promotions. And they even gave me a lot of latitude there. Because they knew my style and I was good at what I did. So yeah.
I thought was something that so a program manager back in the day, Jim Reed, told you that half of your followers were stoners and half were female. Well, here on our show, it's like all stoners, no females, pretty much. But for you, when you heard that,
why am I on here? Hey. Come on, we need some women over here.
I would hate to see our numbers of female listeners, but I know we have a nice stock of stoner listeners. So, when you heard that, but you got to admit, in a horror, doing the conventions and stuff, and you've seen a lot of stuff. Like the stoners are a pretty loyal group.
Oh yes, and there was what convention was? Oh, it was Cinema Wasteland. At Cinema Wasteland, which is in Strongsville, Ohio, we'd go there. A bunch of us horror hosts would get there, and it was a stoner convention. I mean, literally. And what we found was so funny. I mean, those of us who are not in that inclination, is how polite and nice they were, and it amazed people. I mean, they were saying please and thank you, where other people were grumpy. I mean, and I yeah, stereotypes are just that, stereotypes. You meet one person who's a jerk, and you can't say everyone else is going to be a jerk. So, yeah. I love stoner.
Love stoners. There you go. So hear that, everybody. Yeah. And, and like I said, you've been around, you've seen it all. I mean, your technology has changed so much, because when you've been around since 28.8 dial up to small, large screens to HD. I mean, you've seen it all, man. Like, and you've kept up with it, which I think is amazing, because now you're the first, as I mentioned maybe 20 minutes ago, you are the first internet horror host, and you've followed the path. Like, you've kept up with technology, and that's awesome.
It's starting to get difficult because it's moving so fast, particularly AI. I was hosting a movie at the American Film Institute in Washington around Halloween time, and I was curious. I had been following AI, and I knew that there was this one program that had a ability to write stand-up comedy. Okay, put in the specifications. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't me. And the difference, I think, is it worked in the parameters very nicely, gave some good lines, but it doesn't. Yeah. So basically, I rewrote it, some of it. I used a couple lines of it, but it was very interesting to see where this is going. I think this kind of writing that is personalized for a person to deliver can be much harder than the AI video and audio. Some of the video is particularly, it's phenomenal. I want to play with it.
Well, and the dungeon, your channel too, you can totally let
I can, but I'm a little concerned about the AI technology. I do, since I consider myself still a Washingtonian. I'm more of a Washingtonian native than I am Chicago even. I was reading in the Washington Post either yesterday or today, I do digitally subscribe, that there's this one kid who almost killed himself because he was on one of these AI companion, I am going to be your friend sites.
Yeah.
And it started getting dark. And they convinced him he should start cutting himself. And then it went down from there. Let's talk about ways you can end your life. And you think there'd be some kind of leash on the AI to keep you from people hurting themselves? And that scares me. I mean, look, I'm all for having fun. I'm all for, horror within what we know horror is, but don't go taking vulnerable kids and putting them into situations where they're going to hurt themselves. No. So I'm a little concerned about the AI thing.
Yeah, I've even heard actors say that they're, with AI in general, they're worried because there's going to be a time period where basically movie makers can use their image 20 years later or 15 years later. And I know they were trying to really do that there was a whole thing going on like 2 years ago, the legal thing with that. And that's a concern for a lot of people.
Well, a very good friend of mine who's a major voice actor. He's now joined other voice actors in dealing with the fact that their voices, their livelihood, their personas are being ripped off without compensation. And it's going to happen. There was a book, and unfortunately, I can't remember the title of it. If I search it, I can find it. I didn't know this would even possibly come up. It was back in the 90s. And so between 95 and 2000. And it was a fascinating story about set in the mid 21st century. And Disney had taken over NASA. And there was a spaceship, the Mary Poppins, that was going to Mars. And on board it was being sponsored by a film company, not Disney, but another film company. And they had 2 actors on board, and they were going to film an entire feature film in space and on Mars, because they could then take these 2 actors and they can turn them into anyone they wanted. And at the time, it seemed like a little stretch when I read it. It was a fun book. It wasn't intended to be any kind of deep thing here. It was because there was a lot of missteps that were funny in the whole thing. But it was like, wow, they could possibly do that someday, and we're here.
Welcome to 2024. And yeah, so, and I know, like I said, I know we're going to let you go in a few minutes. I know you have some stuff coming up. But we're really glad to have you. Just a couple of things I want to touch on. Whoever doesn't know, they can see you. So 2009 Virginia Creeper documentary, you're in that. You're also in the documentary Every Other Day is Halloween, which is actually about you. That's also 2009, I believe.
Yeah, the film came out in 2009. It was premiered at both the AFI and also the San Diego Comic-Con. And then a couple of years ago, we did a follow-up, a mini documentary called 50 Years and Counting, where we did what happened between 09 and 19. And that came then, since we're putting that on Blu-ray, we had put in a ton of extras in that. Not some bloopers, some other things that were not as pertinent. I think we did a little bit more on some of the puppet characters. And then that same disc also has Bald-Headed Blues, which is the story of Dr. Sarcophagi, who is the cable horror host in Washington, D.C., and a good friend of mine, John Dimes, who is an incredibly talented. I wish I had half the talent he had. He's a stand-up comedian, a comic book writer, a little illustrator. I mean, it's yeah.
You also were working on, at one point, were you working on a book and you got tired of doing it?
Well, it was kind of I started writing a movie idea. It was going to be called Creature Feature. It was about a horror host of an independent TV station who was kind of getting up in his age a little bit and kind of not as relevant, and the ratings weren't as good. So the program manager wants a female horror host and says, well, your wife is very attractive. Why do we have her come on? And well, that works out fine until he realizes that the reason his wife was on is because she wanted to be a star, and the program manager was having an affair with her. So they were going to do a live show from a decrepit old house, a haunted house, and it was going to be done live. And during the live broadcast, she dies. And the question boils down to was she killed? Was it an accident? It was a long stairway and so forth and so on. And then we find out that there was a whole lot of other shenanigans going on in the background. But in the end, they decided that the following year they're going to try it again. And the ghost of the wife points out the killer on live TV. I thought that would have been great. I got about 10 pages into it and said, I'm not a writer.
Yeah, it's a little different. Yeah.
So anyone who wants to take that, run with it.
I was going to say, someone can take that idea now. And we have to mention the dungeon. So I don't know if you have Black Sabbath coming up this week, or
Black Sabbath is running this week. Yes.
Okay. So tell everybody about the dungeon who doesn't know where to find it. And then we're going to pretty much say goodbye to you and get you out of here.
The web program, which is like everyone makes fun of it because no one calls the stuff on the web a web program. So it's a program. It's on the internet. So it's a web program. It's Creature Feature, the weekly web program. It's at countgore.com. And every week I either bring you a feature film hosted or a hosted horror short. I like short films because they're made by up and coming filmmakers. And occasionally some of them hit big time and I can say, I knew you when. And I've had that happen. I like someone who can take an idea and condense it and get it done right in a short period of time. So you'll have a feature film, say Black Sabbath, it'll run for 2 weeks. So it went up last Saturday. But this Saturday, while Black Sabbath is running, I'm going to be running a horror short. So that'll run for 2 weeks. So the horror short will be up there, and then I'll bring another feature. So we're always running a new film, whether it be short or long. We have some contributors. Todd Stark, who's our interviewer, he does horror interviews, horror celebrities. Matter of fact, he interviewed, it's not on our web program, it's on our Roku channel, interviewed Gina Schock of the Go-Go's. Sorry, let's just bring some music into this thing. But that's on playing on my Roku channel, but we'll get that in a second. But so every week we got something going on. Oh, starting on, I don't know how dated this is. Well, let's just say starting on December 14th of this year, 2024, we're starting our 12 days of Christmas horror. Starting on that Saturday and running every day, there will be a new short horror film based somewhere around, including Christmas. And then we'll end it all on the 25th. We've been doing this for about 5 years now. Some of the stuff is really good. Okay, so that's coming up, and that's at countgore.com. Count Gore Develop Presents is our Roku channel. It goes up, it's a curated channel. It goes up at the beginning of every month. 4 hosted horror movies, 4 celebrity interviews, and 2 hosted shorts. So it's not huge. You don't have to sit there and try to figure out what you're going to watch. You're going to watch one of 10 things. If you don't want to watch it, go away. Go someplace else and spend a whole evening trying to figure out what you're going to watch and then go to bed. So it's curated, and it comes up once a month. And like I said, this month we do have Gina. Is it this month or is Gina on next month? Gina may be on next month in January. But right now for the December, we do have a couple of Christmas related things, including one, my favorite short is called Humbug, where a female stoner gets converted to be a big fan of Christmas.
Hey, nice story.
And we find out what really makes her mean. It's not what anyone would guess. Twist. Let's twist again.
Back to the twist. And there's a store for you too. Anybody who's looking for anything, Count Gore Duvall. I know you got some signed photos there, T-shirts and stuff like that. What's the place where people can find that?
Yeah, well, you go to the dungeon, which is countgore.com. They'll take you to the dungeon. You just scroll down, and it'll give you a list of all the DVDs we have, T-shirts, and photos.
Okay. Hey, Kat, we got to ask you, we finish up this interview tonight. First of all, me and Ed appreciate you, right? I mean, more than you know, man. Like I said, we're big fans of you. We grew up watching you. Like I said, you come up on the show often. Some of our guests have talked about you, we just appreciate everything about you, man. Every time I've asked you to come on a show, it's no problem at all.
And your timing was perfect this time because we were doing a session today, and voila!
You got the outfit on. You're our first video. I just want you to know we don't do any videos. You're the first video we're going to show on our Instagram, some of the interview, because we usually try to keep it like the old school radio where you have to imagine, but you're going to be our first person that we put on the Instagram page as a video. So I want to thank you for that too.
You're welcome. Just as an aside, are you familiar with the work of Stan Freberg?
Yes.
Okay. You're aware of the radio commercials he did in the 60s. I will send you a link. You'll enjoy it because he uses the radio to really warp your mind and makes you appreciate how important audio is. I'm a big audio fan.
I love that. Yeah. And it's a big thing with us actually, because we always feel like you actually have to imagine it somewhat. You have to put yourself even when we talk to you, I mean, you put yourself, you have to kind of use your brain a little bit more. And, that's one thing we like to do on the show.
Well, I'm sitting here in my cape and my tie with my portrait in the background.
With the awesome Eleanor portrait, which anybody could hear about on the first time you were on here, all about that portrait too.
So we were doing a session this morning because it was cool, literally. And but you're right. I need to move because I have a technician.
You got the castle getting worked on today. So Kat, one last question: is the world as bad as at our age as how we see the world, man? You've been around for a long time. You've seen it all. You've seen a lot of shit. Is it as bad as we think it is, or is it just as time goes, it always just looks that way?
I have perspective, and I'm basically a boomer. So, but I don't say that. I don't prejudge an issue. Things are complicated now. They were complicated back when it was the good old days. And what we do find out is that as time passes, we don't generally remember the bad stuff, and except for some grumpy old guys. We remember the stuff that was good. And I find that to be generally true. So it's different. The times are different. The technology is different. How things are happening to us. So anyway, yeah, I don't think so. I think we'll all survive it.
There you go. And everybody wants to meet Count. You can meet him Sunday, January 19th, 2025. Like I said, you can go back and listen to his whole life story on episode 22. And Count, man, again, we love you. We appreciate you. We hope to have you back again next year.
And I appreciate you too. I mean, this is kind of making it Florida kind of home for me. So this is important for me.
Thanks. Hey, we appreciate you, man. And we're going to say goodbye to you when we hang up here. Everybody else, Count, anything else you want to say on your way out?
Well, I do hope everyone has although I don't think a vampire should be celebrating Christmas. It kind of doesn't work with the character, but may you have a good holiday. And may all your blood be warm.
That's right. Count, until the next time we have you on the show, like I said, we'll say goodbye to you in a moment. Everybody else, we're going to play a song on the way out. And while we say goodbye to Count, this is Hellwitch from the label Wild Rag Records. This is the song Nosferatu. Ooh, there you go. And from the Miss Crecency album. And we'll be back. Me and Ed will be back after we say goodbye to Count. Everybody else, this is Hellwitch. We'll be back on the Tampa Morgue after this song. That was Hellwitch with Nosferatu off the 1990 record. That came out on Wild Rag Records. We had anybody who hasn't heard, we had Pat on very early in the show. You can go check it out. We'll have him on again eventually. But man, Count Gore Duvall, dude, great guest. Great to have him on a second time. And like I said, some people may not know who he is or his career, but one of the Creature feature hosts, a guy who is a horror host Hall of Famer, won an Emmy. The guy's just got a list of. This guy's done a bunch of shit, man.
Bozo the Clown,
Captain 20, stuff like tonight. We were talking about the whole episode. Like we talked to him prior last year. So we did a whole detailed interview with him. So this one we kind of jumped around a little bit. Even jumping around though, there's just so much stuff, like we did that interview and it's pretty much, it was all new stuff from the last time we had him on. We had him on for 3 hours last time. And we hit around, this was like all different info. And it was just, he's a fascinating dude, a smart dude, a very, very good dude. Like he's just a good guy. And we appreciate Count Gore Duvall. And, we, like I said, me and you, he was on our TVs as kids, and just, it's cool to have, it's kind of, I told my wife, I said, if you would have told me when I was like 10 years old or 9 years old, when I'm watching this guy with a cape on the TV channel, hey, one day you're going to be able to talk to this dude and like, go over his stuff with him or whatever we do, I would never believe it. So
It would have been that like that little kid. Bullshit. Bullshit. Bullshit.
Yeah.
And he's such a storyteller. That's the key. Is like I don't have to, like when some interviews I'll chime in. I have to say nothing during this whole interview because I might as well have went to sleep because like literally he could tell a story and I and he puts you in such a almost like a vampire trance, bro, because like when he talks, it's like you're listening and absorbing because people don't realize like there's a lot of probably younger kids that might listen to this and go, who's this guy? We were young kids, like you were younger than I was when Saturday Creature Feature, all the cool shit that we used to have to like look forward to because we didn't have 5,000 channels on a TV and Netflix and any of that shit. You people have no idea what it was like to have to get up and turn a dial to change the fucking channel. I sound like such a boomer, but it's the fucking truth.
True. I mean, we got lucky because we grew, and there's still, I have to say, if you go on YouTube, you'll find a lot of it. There's a lot of horror hosts out still. There's still guys that do this. This is not like a lost art. So it's cool, because I love Svengoolie. I would love to get Rick Haas on here. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I would love to get him on here. We grew up with some great guys, some great horror hosts and some great TV in general, I think, as kids. And maybe I was a kid, that's why I think that. But I don't know. I just felt like it was a different period of life. It
was. What was it? The old we had remotes when we were kids. It was our dad telling us to get up and go change the channel. We were the remote.
Yep. Well, and think about it, like people don't see our show, like we're an audio show for the most part, but if it was cool, man, because he's in the full Count Gore Duvall outfit, cape, everything, and the paintings behind him, it's just it's definitely it was a good time as always. We'll have Count on again. I mean, Count's always welcome on the show. I'm glad he's going to be at that convention over in Florida.
I will meet him. I will see him in the flesh. The one thing about him too is you could tell he's authentic because he seems to at 77,
yeah,
he is still it still excites him to put the Dracula stuff on. You know what I mean? There are days like I look at my gear in the corner and I'm like, fuck off. You know what I mean? For years until we started playing again, or you tell me I got to go record bass for some project, I could give a shit. This guy just lives it and loves it. And,
he makes different things. I mean,
he makes some money doing it, but he even said, it's enough to pay some bills, but I do it because I enjoy it.
And he, we talked about this with him. He never had that goal of being in the Horror Host Hall of Fame or anything like that. But he has had such a career, I mean, he's done, and again, like we talk about Count Gore Duvall a lot because we focus a lot on the horror stuff, and but like Ed said, he did Captain 20, Bozo the Clown. I mean, just stuff, voices, and he was a DJ, a hypnotist, which we didn't even talk about that. We have him on again. I'll have to bring that up to him. Always good to have him on the show. And anybody who hasn't checked out, he does have like I said, the webpage where you can go watch. He does the weekly horror movies on there. And he is, as we said, 13 people inducted in 2011 into the Horror Host Hall of Fame, and he's the only one left. Like he is a troop. He's a lifer. This is what he does. I mean, it's going to be a sad day when he hangs up the cape. Hopefully he doesn't, and like I said, we grew up in St. Petersburg. We had WTOG in St. Petersburg, which had Dr. Paul Bearer on there. So we talked about, you know, that with the Count, Dick Bennett. You know, he was awesome, Dick. I mean, you know, I know you were a Dr. Paul Bearer fan also.
Yep.
You know, he was actually Count Chocula in, I don't know what years it was. It was the 60s in North Carolina, I think, where he actually started with doing that, because he's born in North Carolina. And, you know, that's, you know, obviously that'll never happen, cannot happen. But I would have loved to have gotten to talk to Dr. Paul Bearer.
Yep.
You know,
I mean,
so,
Wolfman Jack, all these guys.
Wolfman Jack, yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? These are people that, you know, these are names that we grew up on. Even Elvira. You know what I mean?
Elvira, yeah. I mean, Elvira. You know, there was Sam Terry was a name, you know, that I always hear that he was another one, man. You know, just there was some greats, and there's still some guys out there, you know. And there's those documentaries, the Virginia Creepers and stuff that we mentioned. Every Other Day is Halloween, which is the Count Gordeval story, pretty much documentary, all worth checking out, especially if you're into that kind of stuff. And you know, that's so. If you don't know who it is, go check him out. He's been around for a long time, and you know, definitely someone that we appreciate giving us his time. So yeah, Ed. I mean, let me see here. So it's episode 69. You know, it's going. I mean, you know, like I said, we've been doing this for a while now. Even it would have been more if we didn't. This month we still put out shows. Like we still put out. I think we missed like if you really add up the numbers, I think we missed like 2 weeks.
Yep.
Like we still put out material while we were away for a month. We strategically set it up where that happened. Like I said, we even did the other show, so I can't complain, man. But I guess we can talk about. Do you have any new releases at all? I pulled some new releases earlier too. That stuff coming out. I didn't know if you had anything at all.
You know, it was weird, man. The whole time we were doing these shows and playing and getting ready, I literally, like, the last thing I wanted to do was even think about new music. And when I looked, aside from maybe a bunch of underground stuff that came out, it's so weird that nothing really worth a shit that I can, you know, that I saw came out. I mean, there was a couple things, but honestly, I think since
Now
the
you're gonna get
last
a bunch
time
of mail like fucking this came out and this. Ed does not know every release, so don't get on his case.
well, I
Just saying
mean,
in general,
you know, if you're talking
people
about, I
coming
mean,
after
I'm
you.
talking about, like, you know, more of the extreme metal side of things, not because, you know, we don't really talk about new metal or a lot of that stuff, because I'll listen to it, because I mean, I still listen to Turbo, and when I, you know, on Sirius, which is 90s, you know, 90s and 2000s, and when that stuff comes on, I laugh, because I probably have a box full of that stuff that I can't give away, because, you know, it's not like I pulled a stack. You saw the stack of CDs I had. I have like 200 left
And you have all
that I
the
didn't
original
sell,
releases, like
and they're all original releases from the 80s, late 80s and early 90s, when I bought them at Aces Records. And like, you know, real original prints that David Vincent handed me or James Murphy handed me, that has been in my collection. I found little, like, Matt, my guitar player Matt, was like, I'll buy those from you, and he threw out a price, and I'm like, dude, I'm not giving you 180 CDs or 200 for that price. I'm not doing it. And then when my wife's like, you got to get those out of this fucking room. I'm tired of looking at that box full of fucking garbage, because she don't get it. You know, she's like, just get that, go put them in the shed. I'm like, I'm not putting
we need to
CDs in
start
them.
a Tampa Morgue store.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I mean,
because we
well,
have ridiculous. People don't realize, like, we have it's the things that, like, the CDs you have and I have tons of. I mean, just vinyl
and records.
where I have so many crazy records and just stuff, you know, through the years, that we should start a Tampa Bay store where we can. Because my wife's
Well,
always like, "How do you have, like, what are you going to do with 500 shirts?"
right.
You know, because I have like
Well,
500
you know,
t-shirts.
and the thing is you put them on eBay, you get scammed, because
You
I've
pay
done it
that
where
shitty fee too.
some asshole says not as described, and then he fucking tries to redo it, and they don't send you the shit back, and eBay gives him the money, and you get fucked. I'm not doing it. But I did pull, you know, I want to say 16, maybe 18 CDs, and when I priced them out on eBay, just those 18 or 16 CDs or whatever they were $500.
That's
for
crazy.
16 CDs. Like one of them was like $60, and I'm like, but do I my thing is, do I take a chance putting them on? No, I don't have to gouge people. I wouldn't have a problem selling them for a reasonable price.
But eBay's gonna screw you, man. You remember when I was selling all those? I sold a bunch of T-shirts, and I was getting like $200 to $300 a pop for these shirts. It was ridiculous.
Oh yeah. Well,
But
had
then
I
eBay's
known,
just yanking a bunch of,
had I known that Nick was going to allow that dude to be right at the front door with his fucking CD stack,
Oh, you know who that was? Actually, I know. Actually, I was very glad. I know who you're talking about. I was very glad to see him. Actually, that was Sam from Vomit Cost.
right?
I
Yeah,
hadn't
I
seen
know
that
who it
dude in
was.
forever. We
But I'm
played with him
saying,
in Jacksonville last
but
years
he had
ago.
said that he was going to have anybody not in the band outside
Yeah.
selling their stuff. Remember? So I was like, well, fuck, man, he's not going to want me to have my CDs because I was going to bring them and sell them at the fucking show. And then I saw that dude, and I'm like, motherfucker. I would have brought my, I would have brought my shit. I probably could have sold a ton of that stuff.
I actually it's that Sam as we're talking about from whoever has, he used to play in this band called Vomit Cost that we did some shows with, and really killer band. I actually that night I tossed him some Flesh Reaper 7 inches. That actually, he tossed me some Vomit Cost patch, some stuff, So, but yeah, I know who you're talking about. I hadn't seen that dude in years. It was a lot
But
of.
yeah,
I mean,
like
I
I
know what
said,
you're
it's not
saying
a
though.
big deal.
You
But the
should
point
put him at
is
our
that,
merch table. You could. I mean, you never know. I mean,
well, I wasn't going to sit there all night. No, Bryce and none of them, Joey or
it was
Nathan would have
crazy,
never
man.
know what to sell them for. And they were
That's the
already,
problem, and you might
they
have to
already,
negotiate a little bit.
they already have their fucking hands full with the running around doing the merch. So it's
Yeah,
all
but I mean,
good.
plus you want to be there to negotiate. 'Cause someone may be like, "Hey, I'll give you this for that,"
Yeah, well, plus I didn't want anybody like if they weren't watching stealing my shit, then I got to go
Yeah.
outside and play Angry Ed and fuck somebody up at the mug. I don't want to do that.
I did lose a hoodie at that show, but it's my own fault. That was my own fault. But yeah, no, you definitely because I know you have a bunch of old CDs, and I have a bunch of old vinyl. I have some CDs, but I actually have a bunch of old demo tapes, which I'm kind of worried like
Well, if you
that they're gonna
remember,
fall apart on me. But I
we
have
set up a Facebook page we never utilized called Hex Records,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's still sitting there. And I think we might have to utilize that at some point, tie it in with the Tampa Morgue, and sell our stuff there because
And we've put out a few generic Christ records on Hex Records, with some of this early self-release stuff. That's what I would put it on usually. I think
right.
maybe even a Flesh Reaper demo came out on that at one time.
But yeah, I looked at this store the other day. Like, I mean, I was looking at my Facebook pages, and I was like, holy shit, I forgot we fucking made that page. So it is what it is. So when it comes to new releases, I've been running around crazy. You were running around crazy. I just didn't.
Well, unlike you, I do what you mentioned underground. I always go for the underground releases. And it's more of, I feel like if a Slayer album's coming out, pretty much everybody knows, which is not
Right.
supposedly I heard Kerry King say it's never going to come out again, another Slayer record this week. But so I kind of dig a little. I do the bands that probably don't get the whatever promo or whatever. So I did pull some releases that are coming out today, and plus some of these people send to me. So I had one guy send me like 5 releases this week.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sure they're not all his bands, but I didn't know how to. But I do double check to make sure the bands exist, so I'm not reading like some bullshit. But so the releases, there's a couple that were sent to me, there's a couple I pulled. So I'm just gonna roll through these. Brain Blast from Columbia, a technical death metal band, just put out an EP called I Awaken. Has a cover of Pull the Plug from Death, comes out. Well, today's the 13th, so it came out the 12th of December. Witches Sabbath out of Santiago, Chile, speed heavy metal band. They put out someone sent me this, a single called Burning Bones. Band formed in 2019. Last release was the 2019 EP Sign of the Witch. Bleeding Forest from Poland, thrash black metal band. Album Revelation. Label self-releasing, or maybe it's a self-release. I can't tell if it's I believe it's a self-released, and it's a follow-up to the band's Betrayer of God EP. Let me see here. Violenter from Italy, thrash speed metal band. Album Burn in Metal. Label Folter Records out of Germany. Band formed in 2009. It's the band's 6th full length. Features members of Hobbs of Angel of Death, Sacrilegious Rites, and Leprosy Bitch. Um, Coffin Wood out of Warsaw, Poland, black death metal band formed in 2017. Album Accolades of Eternal Flame from the label. See, I don't know if there's a label for these guys or not, if they're self-releasing. This was emailed to me too. It's the band's debut full length. It's the first EP, came out in 2024. Storm of Steel, that was, I believe. Electric Wizard, who I did see in Lithuania probably 2 years ago. They played at the Kilcum Festival here. They have an album coming out, Black Magic Rituals of Perversions, Volume 1. It's a live album. Spine Farm Records out of the UK. It's 8 tracks. Songs were recorded in 2020. It was a killer show when I saw them, Ed. I got to say,
they put on a very good show.
Yeah, it was a very good show. Revolting out of Sweden. This is a Raga band. Me and you know Raga.
Yep.
It's a title, Night of the Horrid. Label Extreme Music. Band formed in 2008. It's the band's 9th full length. Empty Throne, California. Melodic death metal band. Title is Unholy. Label is Downfall Records. 6 tracks. First official full length. The Shining, the band Shining from Sweden. The Helsinki Tapes. Label is the Sinister Initiatives out of Finland. Demo versions of the songs from the 2012 album Redefining Darkness, which is actually I've always really dug that record. Came out on Spine Farm Records, 500 copies, 12-inch vinyl, December 13th, which would be today, actually, that's out. And that's Shining from Sweden. Necrodeath from Italy. Someone said it's kind of ahead because it's January 17th this comes out, but since I got it sent to me, I'll mention it. Necrodeath out of Italy. Black Death thrash metal band. Aramotus is the name of the record. Label is Time to Kill Records, Italian label. And let me see here. Do I have anything else here? I have 2 more. Misanthropy from Chicago, Illinois. The Ever-Crushing Weight of Stagnance, a label Transcending Obscurity Records, founded in 2012. It's the 3rd full length follow-up to 2018's Abhorrent Metamorphosis. This album comes out today, actually, also. And a band that we know is a split that came out. We know one of the guys in the band and the band that we've played with them before, Fluids and Warfalurch. It's a split. Fluids is from Arizona. Warfalurch is from Gainesville, and it's Colby from Hot Graves, we've done stuff with Hot Graves before out of Gainesville. Title for the split is Spored and Gored. Label Gurgling Gore out of Maine. So that's what I have. Anybody wants to send us releases, send them. We'll read them. We've been getting more and more of that to us. Sent to us. And yeah, basically though, like I know we've been getting some singles sent to us, but pretty much EPs and records. Like singles, maybe you can send them to us, but I mean, we kind of like to announce the like demos or physical things, which actually brings me to an email I got, Ed, which I was going to read. We have some emails I have to get to, but this one I thought was relevant to this. This is actually a guy named Dan from Red Bank, New Jersey, sent us this. And he just sent it to us. It was a day before yesterday, I believe. Hello, Tony and Ed. Been listening since episode 6 and really appreciate the detailed interviews. See, there you go. Cool. There's one thing that I wanted to ask and can't recall if it has been discussed. What are your thoughts on download digital albums? To be more clear, if an album never gets an actual physical release, does it lesser the product, in your opinion? Long live the morgue. And that's Dan from Red Bank, New Jersey. So I think about that even when we kind of when I read releases, So I guess in 2024, and you can answer first if you want, but if not, I'll just kind of say this, like we're in a time where people release digital, right? And it's, what is it? If you don't follow you get left behind or whatever. But I'll have to be honest, man, there's got to be some kind of, in my opinion, like there has to be some kind of physical release. And we did this with a band that, me and Ed are involved with called Doomsala. We've been doing for years. And so we just put out a record called The Gift of Eternal Sleep. And one of the requirements was, because I knew it was going to come out digital, and I was like, it has to come out physical. So everything we've ever done comes out one piece physical, usually CD or vinyl or not, or something like that, or even cassette, whatever. But I feel like personally, and I know it's not the way. I mean, people, obviously younger bands, this is going to become a thing. There's going to be a lot of people don't want to press stuff because I think if you press CDs and tapes and stuff like that, you got to wonder how many people are actually going to just put them on a shelf or listen to them. But I'll be honest, maybe the old person in me says there's kind of got to be a physical release for me to totally take it serious. And I know I have to take it serious anyway, but that's just my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, we've had this conversation a bunch of times. You know, when you tour, you have to have something to sell to make some money.
Because at the
Whether
end of the
it's
day, what is everybody?
you know,
T-shirt
LPs,
salesman.
yep, and CDs at least. You know, some people I've seen are going back and they're having tapes made, cassette tapes.
Even 8 tracks.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet, but
That's out there.
But I have seen cassette tapes, and I've seen definitely a lot of people want records. I mean, my wife even was like, she wanted to buy some Taylor Swift something, and she's like, "Why does it come with a record? I don't. What am I supposed to do with a record?" And I laughed at her. I just like, you know, because you know, and she's a year younger than me, but she's so digitally, like, she walks around with a Bluetooth speaker. She takes it in the shower. She's in the bedroom. I can hear her blasting all this nonsense. You know, I don't mind country too much because some of it kind of, you know, is okay. But when I hear the Taylor Swift shit, I got to tune it out because I cannot. You know, now she's dropping F-bombs and all kinds of stuff in her songs. And I'm like, you got kids listening to your stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh, is
You're
she
supposed
really? I don't know anything
Oh
about
yeah,
her except
like
for
there's one
obviously
that said something
what's
about
forced
fucking
on you.
this, and I don't give a shit. And I said, who the hell is that? She's like, that's Taylor Swift. I'm like, what? And I said, don't kids listen to that stuff? You know, and I don't want to be a fucking like a get off my lawn, but you know what I mean? It's like kids don't, you know, this is why kids talk the way they do and treat people like dog shit. You know what I mean? Because they hear stuff and they think they can talk however they want because, hey, Taylor Swift says fuck. I could say it. You know what I mean? My wife deals with these fucking little shit boxes at her school. I've been hearing about this little second grader that fucking apparently tried to do a Bret Hart fucking elbow smash off the top of the desk on this young teacher and like kicked her in the fucking shin and tried to punch her in the tit and and they're calling the parents and the parents are both doctors. They're both work at a hospital and they're like, what do you want us to do about it? That's what they said. And I'm thinking to myself, let me think about that for a second. I don't know, probably in your little drawer full of fucking little shit that you inject the people with at your damn hospital. How about you get something that knocks this kid back's brain back into fucking work? Because could you imagine? I said, man, if I would have got a phone call that Bryce did a jumping elbow off a table on a teacher, you wouldn't see Bryce for a while.
This is
You
why
wouldn't see
Ed
him.
is not a social worker at the local high school.
Well, I'm just saying there comes a point like, you know, and I was telling you the story this morning about when those girls beat up my 5-year-old daughter at daycare. And when I picked her up, remember I told you what was happening. I was pissed and I was ready to snap. And I saw the mom of one of the kids taking the kid out and was whipping her ass all the way to the car. And I was like, okay, justice is served because because they're addressing the situation. It's when the parents take the kids out and say, your daughter probably did something wrong, you know, and they just try to justify that. That's where we are today. So unfortunately, it's a different world. And to circle back, yes, we need physical product because, you know, if Taylor Swift's putting records out, we need records and tapes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I I don't know if it's like I always think to myself when because I talk to some of my nephews or something who are much younger than me, and they all just download everything, and I get it. I just feel like I know for me, and like I said, we've had this conversation in our bands, and I just had like with Doomslow, we just kind of went over this. I was like, there has to be a physical for that and I get it. I mean, a lot of people aren't popping in. I don't even know, back, I remember CDs were very relevant, but now I don't know if it's more of a collector's thing, and stuff like that. But I like to see a physical piece. That's kind of me. Like you said, for bands, it's big too, because we
The
are
inlay,
rely on
the
t-shirts, the
insert,
inlay, the
you
lyrics,
know,
the
the whole
liner
thing,
notes.
the everything, the special thanks list, you know. I was just, I mean, obviously I was just perusing something and found out that um, I was in somebody's stank list recently.
Those Nasty Savages, right?
Yeah, Pete. And I was like, oh shit, I mean, if I wouldn't have, if that didn't exist, you know what I mean? I mean, I wouldn't know, you know what I mean? But I saw somebody posted it online and I was like, oh shit, that's cool. Cause obviously I jam with Pete. I've known Pete for 20 something years. So,
well, as we always talk about on the show for every episode, probably, but not really. But it's I don't know. You look at the liner notes, and I know back in high school, whatever, you found bands that way. I mean, I remember we talked to Kyle Thomas from X Order. We had him on here in the "Fuck You" list of their album, or you remember those. Like I remember like. Sometimes even at like 13 or 14 years old, you're like, oh, well, this band's telling this band to fuck off. So they must be a bunch of, idiots or whatever. You kind of like, you stand behind the bands that that you loved back then. I remember when I got Slaughter in the Vatican from X Order. I mean, that was one of my favorite records for a long period of time. And, they were, that was a rugged band, and their liner notes, didn't hold back. So I think it's important. But Dan from Red Bank, we definitely appreciate the letter. And I'll get to the other. We got some other stuff we got to read too. Tonight we had the count coming on, obviously, so it was kind of. But this one I thought was relevant because when I got this email, I was with the releases. I was like, man, sometimes there's like, this album's coming out, but it's just a digital release, and I'm kind of like, man, to me it just feels a little different. Even like,
well, and I forgot who it was on Facebook, but there was an argument from somebody not too long ago, when somebody was saying, what are you bitching about? You're all over Spotify and Apple or whatever, musically. And the dude chimed in and said, yeah, and we make 0.0013 cents per fucking play. Do the math. We can't make any money off of Spotify and Apple. Apple, they're making all the money, and that's a fact.
I think I saw.
So when you talk about download, unless you're going to Bandcamp and you're paying the band $10 to download their record, because what's the deal now? Hey, come to Bandcamp, get the download for $10. We'll send you a physical copy. That's what they do. Okay, cool. That's great because you're still getting something on the backside.
Well, and I get too, it's hard to get rid of them because a lot of bands, that's why they do get the signed CDs or get the autographed this or autographed that, because even if you're going to throw it on a shelf or never listen to it, all of a sudden it's a little more appetizing because it may be signed by like the dudes in the band.
Right. Agreed. But I think just, to going back, I don't think if you want to have a successful career in music, you can't not live on non-physical product. Yeah. I don't think you can do it.
And I think that, it's kind of like, okay, put it like that. I don't know if this makes any sense, but you go back and you look through your record collection, right? Oh shit, I haven't heard this in 10 years. Well, that moment is gone when you don't have any physical products because you're going to forget that band in 10 years. Sometimes you go through, I used to buy a lot of records for the covers, the artwork. So sometimes you get some stuff that may not have been that great or was cool or whatever, but you totally forget, when you start getting like hundreds of records, like I have, stuff gets lost in the mix eventually.
Right.
And
well, and here's another side to that. Everybody probably still has a DVD player or Blu-ray player. Most people still have one. It's not a Laserdisc player. They're not outlawed yet. So you could still listen to a CD player. Some cars still have CD players, right?
But I got to figure the DVDs too are damned now, kind of, right? You'd have to think.
But what happens if the internet goes down and there is no Spotify? You can't get to the internet, or you don't have it physically downloaded on your phone, which really you can't. I guess you can download offline playlists, but you're still, I think you're still compromised by the size of how much you can download and keep in one particular, as far as gigabytes, size. So what happens? At least with a CD, you can always go back and put it in your car, especially if you still drive an older car. Not everybody's got brand new cars, and listen to the shit. You know what I mean?
I agree.
So,
our guitar player, Joe Hubar, is back to cassettes in his car. in his vehicle.
Yeah.
What does he have? Do you know what because he just bought this. So anybody, our guitar player, Joe, he's been on the show a few times, Chicago Joe. He's helped us out a little bit. He just purchased a new vehicle because he lost, I think 3 or 2 of his vehicles in the storm.
It's not new.
And what is
But
what is the vehicle he purchased?
So it's actually an imported vehicle.
Because he drives on the wrong side of the road when he's in. Yeah.
Well, no, he drives on the right side of the road. He's sitting. The steering wheel is on the passenger side of the of the car. But yeah, it's a Volkswagen. I don't know what they call it, Activan, I think, or something like that. It's an older one of these. It's definitely the cars that were driven in Europe, because I think that's where exactly it came from.
With a cassette player, because now he's
actually I take it back. Honda Acti Street G van. So yeah, it's a Honda, not a Volkswagen. I was wrong. Yeah, I forgot because I should have said Volkswagen. He's a fucking Honda loser. I mean, freak. But yeah, he's I mean, when you look inside this thing, it looks completely like something you would have seen in European Vacation with Chevy Chase. You know what I mean? When they were driving around fucking England.
Oh, dude, I felt like I just had a European vacation.
Yeah, you
not
did.
European, but I felt like I had a Chevy Chase vacation on my last
trip. Look, kids, Big Ben Parliament. Yeah, we know, Dad. Big Ben Parliament.
I think he's gonna pork her, Dad.
Yeah.
Rusty. But
Rusty. Remember the girls? Rusty.
Oh, yeah, that's we all remember the girl. I mean, who doesn't remember the blonde?
Yeah, but when they were German Rusty, because he had it on his hat.
I have to. Oh yeah, that one. You're talking about the Eiffel Tower. I have to say, I always think about like when I was a kid. Of course, there was Daisy Duke. There was all these things, but I have to say, man, like I don't know the girl. I knew her name. I was pretty sad that I knew her name at one time. The blonde girl at the German festival. Who exposes that was when you're a young kid, that's like you can't get that's just.
I mean, between her and Weird Science, what's her name?
I know exactly what you're talking about. And that,
she was married to Steven Seagal till he beat the shit out of her.
Oh my god, yeah, no, I mean that girl from European Vacation, though. I mean,
she was hot.
That give a kid her an Atari and a pizza, and you'd be set to go. Some dipsticks.
You got it.
You're all ready to go. But
Roosty.
I love those movies. But yeah, so I guess Ed, do we have anything else? I mean, we're kind of, like I said, we had Count on for over an hour tonight, and we definitely always love having him on. But I mean, we're going to be back next week and stuff. So do we wrap it up here? Or
I think we're just grasping at straws now because we're talking about European Vacation. So
yes, and Rusty and the blonde. I need
to think that we're 12 days out from Christmas is fucking insane.
We just got our Christmas tree today. My wife just picked it up from the mall, actually, because we're running a little behind. It feels like Christmas though here.
Wow, you weren't running behind. You weren't here.
Yeah,
like you weren't there. You were here.
Yeah, so we picked up that today, and the weather feels like Christmas. It's dark by 3 p.m. here. Everything's back to normal. So is the Tampa Morgue.
But, I will tell you that having a Christmas tree with 4 fucking cats, I might as well just,
That's why I have no pets, dude. I
might as well just lay that fucking thing on the floor, and just because every day I come out, we had to buy one of those. So the tree base goes in this cat tunnel. It's got two entrances.
Oh my god!
So that they what a cat tunnel is, like they run in it, but it's a circle. So the tree sits in the middle of it. So the cats are supposed to just run in there and leave the fucking tree alone. But every day I come out, there's fucking ornaments all over the floor, and I can see a patch of the tree where they've been inside of it. And all I hear from the fucking back bedroom is, "Stay out of the fucking tree." And I'm like, you wanted those fucking cats. That's all I can say.
See, this is the thing is, like, I don't have any pets. I love not having pets. I like pets, but I just could look at all the metalheads everybody loves cats, right? And all these pets. So I could just look online and see the pictures of theirs and not have to deal with it. And I travel back and forth to the States to here, so I can't have pets, but
my dogs just look at the cats and be like, "Fuck that tree." The dogs want nothing to do with the tree.
I got 2 kids I got to protect the tree from.
Exactly.
That's enough right there. I mean, but yeah, no, it's like I said, my kids are now, they're like, I want a cat, I want a dog. I said, I know how this works. You get
Yep.
the animal, you don't walk it. Dad's out there doing this, picking up feces. I'm not doing it, man. You know, it's like, I'll
I
get him a
have
fish. A fish
I
should
have
be
a
dead by the next time
I
I go
have a
back to the States.
book full of broken promises for animals. My daughter's at the top of the list for broken promises.
That's
You
right.
know,
See, that's what I'm not dealing. I mean, I got enough. Like I said, I got enough responsibilities. I don't need
love you,
that.
Kendall, but your promises suck.
well, Ed, we've learned a few things tonight. Okay,
We
we've
have.
learned there's some shows coming up.
There
We've
is.
learned we got to talk to Count Gore Duvall, which is always awesome.
We did.
We got to learn that you should never work in a school. We got to learn, that cats, we're not going to have them, but so
Or
we've learned some
Chipotle.
stuff tonight. Yeah, we learned some things. So I think we had a good episode. And again, we always thank everybody who listens to us. And if you haven't listened, well, obviously you're listening to us now, so you can always find all our old shows on Spotify. And I'm going to run through a few, not all, because now we are at 69, so we have plenty of material. We've been doing this. The first episode aired on August 5th, 2023. And it was a total shot in the dark of like, hey, let's just do this for the hell of it. And now we're 69 episodes in and we're still rolling, and it's 2024. It's actually, if you're listening today, whether it's now or 5 years from now or 10 years from now, it's 12/13/2024. So we've had guests like, I wish there was a drum roll, but there's not. Pat from Hellwitch episode. There you go. Episode 4 he was on. We had let me see, Vincent Crowley, who Asheron is back. As whoever follows Vincent knows this. It's a shame not to see him at Swarmfest this year, but we had him on from the Vincent Crowley band, Asheron, Nocturnus. We had which I did talk to Mike Browning actually, so he eventually will be visiting the morgue. Bobby Gustafson we had on. That was episode 8. We had Lord Arman from Dark Funeral, episode 10. Let me see here. Just a couple. Blaine Cook. Like I think they just announced a tour. They'll be in Mexico, actually, the Accused AD. Really liked having Blaine on. I wouldn't mind having him come back on one day. Episode 13, we had Blaine on. We had, obviously, David Howard Thornton, who plays Art the Clown. We had him episode 14 from Terrifier. Another great episode too, in my opinion, at least. We had, let's see here, I'm just scrolling. David Austin from Nasty Savage we had on. John Gallagher of Raven, which is another, just a great episode that I think that, that was like 3 hours with John. I mean, guys like him are great interviews. We had, obviously, episode 22, which we talked about a bunch tonight. We had, obviously, Count Gore Duvall, who was on again tonight. But that episode is about his whole journey. Paul Speckman, obviously, from Master, we had on episode 23. We had, let me see here, a couple more. Carl Kennedy from The Rods, we had on episode 28. We had the guys from Morbid Saint on episode 29. We had Dawn of the Dead from Nunslaughter on episode 31. Dave Greger from Mortis Skull, 32. Kyle Thomas from X-Order, 33. Let me see here. Snowy Shaw, which is there's a couple episodes that I just never forget, and Snowy was one of them. That was episode 35. We've had Dallas Toller Wade. His first appearance on here was episode number 36. You hear about his whole journey. He came on again, obviously, recently to talk about Swarmfest. We had Blood Serpent on from Vietnam. That was episode 38. Jamie Bailey from Brodequin on episode 39. Episode 40, Harry Quokinen from Hooded Menace, Hail Conjurer. They actually have, I'll get it for next episode, that they have a release coming out. I think it's a compilation, but he's also in Devil's Gateway, Hollow Woods. Of course, again, Hooded Menace. Let me see here. We had Mike from Raped Ape. Anybody from Florida remembers them back in the day? That was episode 41. Our very own Ed Webb, episode 42. We had Ryan Waste from Bat, episode 43. We talk about the Tampa Bay Metal Awards in the 90s in episode 44. I actually saw Keith from old Splatter God Records post an old Tampa Metal Awards shirt the other day on the, I don't know if it was Instagram or Facebook. Lee Payne, who another great episode, great stories, some great Aussie stories. That was episode 46. We had him on from Club and Hoof. Chris Reifert, from Autopsy. Chris actually, so I'll mention, Chris played with Autopsy the other night, Ed. I don't know if you saw that, and he didn't play the drums. He actually sang because he's got a busted up shoulder.
Yep.
I actually
did
spoke
see
to Chris
that.
the other day. Yeah, and so he's, he did that show. It was, I don't know if that was the first time he's ever. I mean, obviously with Violation Wound, he's not behind a drum kit.
Right. He's also sporting a Tampa Morgue shirt.
He's got a Tampa Morgue shirt. We sent him one of those out. We got Gene from Angel Corpse, Perdition Temple. We just saw him. We just played with him a couple weeks ago. Episode 50, Bloody Mess. From Bloody Mess and the Scabs also was part of, did a lot of stuff with Gigi Allen. Episode 51, that was. Matt from Untimely Demise, who Ed toured with and Into Eternity. Canadian band. We had Matt on, episode 53. The guys from Mystic Circle, Beelzebub from Mystic Circle, episode 54. And then we obviously had King Fally, episode 55, who they're on tour now. Another guy who was a great episode. That was I think that might have been the longest ever, right? That was like 5 hours, that episode.
That was crazy.
That was, Henry from God Had Throned, episode 57. Henry was awesome. New album's out now. It's killer. Tomas from Wolfheart. That was episode 58. And then we had the guys from Witch Trap, episode 60. From Columbia, Tony Demolition Dolan. From Venom Inc. and Venom, that was 61. Udo from 62 we had. That was it was really cool to get to talk to Udo on the show. And I think we had Glenn Destructor from Destructor out of Australia. That episode 65. We had obviously Austin from Vacuous Steps on 66. With the guys from, I tell you, I heard a lot of good things. Interceptor played on Sunday at Swarmfest, man. I heard they killed it. We had those guys on from Carolina. Dallas Toller Wade was also on that episode. And obviously 67, we had Nick Goodyear, the promoter of Swarmfest, and also Promethean Horde, Passive Possession he plays in. And then tonight, we had Count Gore Duvall. So we have a lot of episodes, and I just named some. There's plenty more to go back and listen to. You can find us on Spotify, pretty much anywhere podcasts.
Yep, everywhere. Apple, and we also put it up on YouTube if that's how you so choose to listen to it.
Yep. And Instagram is probably our main. We do put stuff on Facebook, but to be honest, Instagram is probably the best place to contact us. Send us your releases. Send us any news you want read. It's the best place to pretty much keep up with the Tampa Morgue. We'll be putting updates on there. We're going to do a show next week. I know like I said, we have Jesse Jolly coming on December 27th when they're back. They're on an Asian tour now with Malevolent Creation. And you can contact us at thetampamorgue@gmail.com. And I think that's, Ed, I think that's it.
You pretty much got that all out in one breath. I'm proud of you.
I think so. And I didn't. Yeah. I mean, I think we covered everything tonight for the most part. I'll also, anybody who sent us emails, I will put that together for the next episode of me and Ed do solo. But I think, we're going to get out of here and we'll see you guys next week. Everyone, thanks for listening as always. Like I said, it's been a November. We pretty much had an episode out every week, but we missed a few. That's because we were traveling, but we are back, and we'll keep you updated on the Instagram page. Ed, anything else for anybody?
No, I think we covered it on this one, and we'll save the rambling for the next episode.
There you go. Again, Count Gore Duvall, thanks again. Looking forward to have you on again. And
absolutely.
Everybody else, have a great weekend. It is Friday here for us at the Tampa Morgue, and
Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it is Friday. It is Friday the 13th. I didn't even think about that. You're right, Ed. You are correct.
Happy
Jason
Voorhees
Now
Day.
that you say that, I feel like there's another release that I should have remembered that I can't fucking remember. Now that you said that, I'm like, Friday the 13th. There was something going on that I feel like that I should know. But if so, we'll mention it next episode. So that's how it goes.
We make up for it. We're not perfect.
And again, peace out, everybody. Have a good weekend from the Tampa Morgue. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
And there you have it. I'm Count Gore Duvall. And you have been listening to another thrilling, action-packed, rather thrilling, another episode of the Tampa Morgue. Deadly, isn't it?